Hello, everybody. Welcome
Oh,
back to Mushoku Tensei light novel readings. Yeah, as I was saying just a moment ago, I've also been to Savannah, and that's a different kind of crazy because good old haunted Savannah. Uh, that being said,
I love Savannah.
yeah, I'm wondering if I'd get in trouble for mentioning the name of this town. It is a town in
What,
Georgia.
Savannah?
Uh, no, not Savannah. No. But there's other places in Georgia that I've been to outside of the major cities. But yeah. All right. You know what? Twitch. This is the actual name of the town. Cumming, Georgia. Funny enough, it is near Butts County.
It's fixing to
Butt
say.
County.
Yep.
Yep. I love the beautiful Butts County.
Mm-hmm.
All through 4-H, they were the only county where people were allowed to say beautiful whatever county because of the meme.
Mm.
Mm,
So
No one else ever said it, and it was always beautiful Butts County.
Butts County.
yeah, I'm sure they're nice, but that being said, hello and welcome back to the light novel readings. Uh, I'm Richie Roberts.
I'm Moonlight Sparks.
I am Sonic Speed 17, aka Snuggle Velocity.
If we do
These days, you just
AKAs,
need to
we'll be
pick a
here.
name.
Yeah, dude. If we start doing AKAs, like nobody's promoting their Twitch at the moment, so like their
Well,
streaming
technically,
stuff.
I am
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I
because
get
I
what he's
just
talking
have the
about.
one name.
Well, okay, we're
Right.
not plugging. We're not plugging our stuff. It's just introduce yourself.
Yep.
If
And
we remember to do it, plugs are for the end of the show.
mm,
Hell, half the time I don't even remember to raid. Ugh.
Just like today's sponsor. No.
Oh, fuck you. We are not sponsored. Don't let that go
Yeah,
out.
we're not. We're not.
We are absolutely not sponsored.
Yet, they can always hit us up. Come on,
Maybe
guys.
Bookwalker.
You know
they
what?
can do
There.
that.
Okay, yeah. See, like Bookwalker, things like that.
They do gamer subs, and then they can have cool stickers made for us.
Anime related
Ooh.
material. Things like that. I got into a conversation this weekend when I realized, unfortunately, I could very easily become a VTuber and not require any rigging on my part or any of the crazy facial tracking stuff. All I need to do is just change between the different images of emotions. Technically, Fat Dog already has a VTuber model. It's Menu Sama.
Mm.
It's
Oh,
fucking terrible.
What's great is I might even be able to make it 3D.
mm.
No,
I'm almost finished with my donuts.
I
Nice.
really don't need that. Thank you.
You have to teach me how to do that because I might want to
Why?
do that for my own stuff
Why?
eventually.
Why would I have a 3D debut for a character that's mostly flat?
Because then you can move it around a lot better and do more funny shit with it.
Yeah, I don't want to.
It's
That
not about what you want, man. It's
I
about
don't
what the
care. That
fans
sounds.
want.
Yeah. So about that, there's a reason. There's a reason why I'm not making a VTuber model of Menu, and it's because what I want supersedes what the fans want.
If you want to be that way, sure.
I do. I do want to be that way.
All right, then.
Yeah.
You hear that,
Besides,
fans? Richie Robert does not appreciate your opinions.
yeah.
Damn.
Well, everybody has to realize that part of Menu's personality is based off of me, and it's literally the part of my personality that says "fuck off and die." That is
Well,
essentially Menu, and it horrifies me how so many people have latched onto that character so quickly.
Yeah, it's because he's fucking funny.
Yeah.
No, it's not. He's not a funny character at all.
He is, though, because
I mean,
he
yeah,
tells
no, you're
people to
wrong.
fuck off and die.
It's like,
That's
oh,
what
that's
makes him
so
funny.
you.
But that's not what makes him entertaining, and there's a difference. You don't want to go to a stream where it's just constantly the guy telling you to fuck off and die. That's not okay.
Do you know what the internet is like? Literally, it is made on native spite. You tell them to fuck off and die, they're gonna sit there, give you the middle finger, and subscribe for 3 months just because you said that.
Yeah, the fact that you say you don't like Menu as a character.
Look at
is
the
like,
cult of
even
Menu,
more.
my guy. How many times have you told them you don't want them to exist? And what happens? They
Do you
keep
know
growing.
Yeah, you basically gave them permission.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Yeah, they keep growing. Do you know the actual number of menu cultists? Like, actual menu cultists?
Does it matter?
It's 6, dude.
It's still more than 2.
It's not 0.
It's more than last year. It used to be 5.
If it grows, it grows. Doesn't matter, no matter how the rate.
No. Okay. Let me just put my foot down right here. It's not happening. Fuck off and die. If you want that kind of abusive treatment, there are already channels out there that are way more successful that I think are much more entertaining. Like, check out Vettel's channel. Go see Evil and Neurosama. Literally, Menu is just an earlier version of them. To be fair, our abridged series came out first. That's all. The same fans of Neuro and Evil would basically be Menu cultists at this point, you know? My personality cannot handle having to be Menu for several hours on end. It's just not a thing that I think I could feasibly do. It would hurt my soul. Be like Genu, slowly becoming less and less human. Speaking of which, new episode came out this weekend. Yay. Now, everybody who has watched the anime up to current has now seen everything I saw in theaters. So next week will be all new content as far as I and everyone else who attended the theaters are concerned. Of course. No, pardon me. Of course, if you're manhwa readers or light novel readers, we know what's coming, but we've never seen it animated before, and we can't wait because the anime is doing a lot of really, really cool shit. I gotta give it to them. A1 Studios, you're doing some fire animation. Why am I hearing myself?
Is one of us echoing? Could be me.
No, it's not. It's okay.
Yeah, I hear it barely, but I don't know. Did you
It-
have like a...
Hello?
like your computer mic pick it up? Sorry.
Hello? Can someone tell me why I'm hearing myself?
It's like faint.
Moon, are you muted at all? Because I think it's coming from you.
Thought so. Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, try again.
It's not echo. It just sounds like I'm hearing myself as a normal like Twitch delay. Are you also watching the channel and had the audio turned on?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
But like, regardless, there's gonna be delay between what you're saying and when it comes through my speakers. So.
Oh, you're hearing it. Your speakers.
I'm wearing headphones.
Oh, okay. I was like, dude. if I'm
Headphones
hearing it-
still have speakers.
Yes, but like when you say speakers, the common immediate thought is like speakers in front of you as opposed to headphones. That's why there's two different words, I guess. I don't know. Yes, I am stalling. Yes, I am delaying. I'm in a lot of pain and I really don't want to read, but it's my week to read. I could use my authority and make someone else read for me. Tag them in. Which is sad because the part of the story that we're at is the part of the story I was like really interested in and looking forward to. So, yeah, I'd rather have someone else read this and we just have a discussion about all of this stuff as we move through it. How about that? We good?
You are.
Okay.
got no
Sonic,
problem with that.
you will be reading next week. as per
Yep.
usual. I'm just gonna give it over to Shem. Let him read it.
All right.
Sorry, I'm just in a lot of pain and like
No,
having
that's
to look
understandable.
back and forth between.
Yeah.
This seems to be more than just a simple issue of me sleeping wrong or something. Like this pain that has been persisting for a couple of days, and it's just been progressively getting worse. And now, if I turn my head to look from screen to screen, it really sets off the pain receptors. Something fierce.
Is it like a spinal thing?
I don't think it's not in my spine. I don't believe, but it is
Hmm.
like it's on the side
the
of my
neck.
neck. It's on the side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So like normally the
Gotcha.
muscles you don't really acknowledge, but like
Yeah.
are very much there when you're in pain. It's like, hey,
Dude,
they
I
really
could-
make you aware.
I
get
could
that,
feel
yeah.
it. I could feel it when I was walking. I'm like, what does my neck have to do with walking? But apparently, like I look
I guess 'cause
around
your
a lot
shoulders
more.
shift slightly.
No, I look
guess, I don't
around.
know.
I look around a lot more than I realize when I'm walking. And now
Oh.
I'm
Mm.
starting to realize it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, never mind.
All right.
Black Betty,
One sec. Okay.
All right.
Water. All right. Chapter 7, To the Central Continent. After 2 months on the road, our party finally reached the city of Westport. Its streets looked very similar to those of Zantport, the northern coastal city. It was, however, considerably larger. The route between the capitals of the Holy Country of Milis and the Kingdom of Asura was a crucial artery of commerce. Many towns along its length served as bases of operations for merchants and traders. Westport was one of the more prominent. While it couldn't compare to Milishion's commercial district, a number of enterprises had their headquarters here, and the city's streets were packed with their subsidiary shops and businesses. Now that we made it this far, it was time to say our goodbyes to our horse and carriage. In this world, there were no ferries that would carry land vehicles across bodies of water for you. Just like when we left the Demon Continent, we needed to sell off our means of transportation here and then buy a new one on the other side. It's weird how that's structured, but anyway. Unlike that charming lizard, I hadn't gotten too attached to our horse, so I decided to give it a name at the very end. Farewell, faithful land biscuit. Once we'd sold off our friend, we headed straight over to the checkpoint. This proved to be a very large building, unlike the one in Windport. There were even soldiers in helmets and armor standing outside the entrance. Fully armored knights had been a pretty common sight in the streets of Milishion as well. At a glance, their equipment appeared to be very sturdy, but when I thought about what Eris or Regard could do, I wondered if it would serve much purpose. The people and monsters of this world tended to pack some serious firepower. One hit might be enough to smash off your fancy suit of armor and leave you in your boxer shorts. Hell, the knockback might even send you falling down a pit for an instant game over. Okay, sorry, I'll stop now. Entering the customs building, we found it packed with people. Many of them seemed to be adventurers, and many others were dressed like merchants. A number of alert-looking clerks were briskly processing their requests. It was a world of difference from Windport, where the office had been mostly empty and the staff apathetic at best. I walked up to the nearest open counter. Hello there. Hello, how can I help you today? Once again, I found myself facing a receptionist with impressively large breasts. In this world, there seemed to be some sort of unwritten rule that clerks had to be stacked. Not that I made any efforts or comments to that effect, of course. I'm looking to secure my party a passage across the sea. All right, please take this then. The woman handed me a small wooden card with the number 34 engraved on it. This was evidently quite the bureaucratic operation they had going here. I headed back to the waiting area and took a seat. Eris dropped down in the chair next to me, but Regard stayed on his feet. When I took a look around, there seemed to be plenty of other people waiting for their number to be called as well. This seems like it might take a while. Aren't you going to give them the letter? Asked Regard. I shook my head. Not until they call our number. If you say so. Eris was already a little fidgety. Understandable, since waiting patiently wasn't exactly her specialty. After a moment, though, she muttered, Rudius, I think someone's looking at me. I looked around the room more carefully this time, trying to spot the person she was talking about. As it turned out, it was the guards. Many of them were shooting brief glances over in Eris's direction, and she was glaring right back, of course. Please don't start a fight with them, Eris. I wasn't planning on it. That was somewhat difficult to believe. In any case, you had to wonder why they were looking her way. No plausible explanation really came to mind. Were they just captivated by her beauty? Nah, Eris was definitely growing prettier by the day, but she was still a kid. Unless all the knights working here were pedo scumbags, and that couldn't be what was going on here. Number 34, please come forward. Anyway, they'd finally called our number, so I stood up and headed to the counter. I explained to the receptionist that we wanted to book passage to the central continent and then handed over Reacher's letter. She took it from me with a polite smile, but when she looked at the name written on the envelope, her expression grew somewhat dubious. Wait just a minute, please. With that, she stood up and walked off into the rear of the building. After a while, I heard a loud thump and the sound of someone shouting. An armored soldier soon hurried out from the back, approached another guard, and whispered something in his ear. That guard proceeded to run out of the office with a very serious expression on his face. All this struck me as somewhat ominous. I'd hand over that letter because I trusted Regard, but maybe it would have been smarter to do a bit more digging on that Gash Broche character. Sorry to keep you waiting. The receptionist from before had returned. Her businesslike smile couldn't hide the tension on her face. Duke Bakshio says he'll see you now. I had an extremely bad feeling about this. I am Duke Bakshio von Weezer, Director of the Millis Continental Customs Office. This hog bore a strong resemblance to a pig. Whoops, my mistake. This man bore a strong resemblance to a pig. His neck was so enormously fat that his chin had disappeared completely. His light blonde hair was plastered to his forehead. There were huge bags under his eyes. He had the face of a crafty, nasty old man. He was also scowling at us with open hostility. I'd seen a guy a lot like this way back in the day. Every time I looked into a mirror. Humph. To think some filthy demon would be brazen enough to bring me a letter like this. Duke Bakshio was seated in a luxurious leather chair, which he didn't seem inclined to leave. It squeaked underneath him as he tapped the piece of paper in his hand with a pen. There were countless pieces of paper on his expensive-looking desk. Among them, I spotted a familiar envelope, now torn open. Presumably, he was holding its contents. You certainly chose an impressive name, I'll give you that. And that seal looked very real as well. But I wasn't born yesterday, my friends. It's obviously a fake. Bakshio tossed his letter carelessly over at us. I reached out in reflex and caught it. This man is of the Spurd. Nonetheless, I owe him a great debt. He is a man of few words, but noble in character. Waive all customary fees and see him safely to the central continent. Galgard Nash Vennik, commander of the Missionary Knights. One look at the name at the bottom left, one look at the name at the bottom left sent my head spinning. What happened to Gash Broche? Who was this Galgard Nash Vennik guy? It took a few seconds for me to realize that you could shorten Galgard Nash to Gash. Maybe he was the kind of guy who introduced himself using a nickname. Richard might have gotten the impression that he really was just named Gash, although that didn't explain the Broche part, of course. More importantly, though, commander of the Missionary Knights? Was he seriously the leader of one of the 3 holy military orders? This was giving me a serious headache. Why would Richard's old acquaintance be such a major figure? It did make sense, though, in some ways. The commander of the Missionary Knights had to be pretty high ranking in the Millis hierarchy, right? It might not go over well if everyone knew a guy like that was friends with a Spurd. Maybe that was why he used a false name. Of course, there were simpler explanations for that, too. It had been 40 years since Richard first met the man. Maybe he'd marry into a powerful family and change his name or something. In the first place, there's not a chance that closed-mouthed man will write a letter like this. I know him well, and I know that he detests putting pen on paper, even when it's simply necessary. Do you really expect me to believe he wrote this on behalf of some lowly demon? What a farce. Richard listened to all this silently with a conflicted expression on his face. This man was asserting flat out that his letter was a fake simply because he was a Spurd, or so it likely seemed to him. And he might not be entirely wrong about that, to be honest. Paul had warned me that this Duke Bakshel was famous for his hatred of all demon kind. Surely this Gash, or Galgard, was aware of that as well, right? If he knew that Bakshel was like, he really should have written a slightly more thorough explanation. Was the man not really who he claimed to be then? No, remember what Reager told you. He'd met Gash in a building big enough that he compared it to Kishirisu Castle. That would be very large for a home or mansion, but what if it was the headquarters of the Missionary Knights? That would likely be a large building, with many knights inside at all times. And if Gash was the commander, all those knights would be his subordinates. That would explain why Regers said he had many men. Of course, figuring all that out wasn't particularly helpful at that moment. Duke Bakshel had already made up his mind that the letter was fake, since things had come this far, saying, Yes, it's a fake. Oh, sorry. Yes, it's a fake. Sorry about that. Wasn't going to end well for us. I took a step forward. In other words, you believe this letter to be a forgery, sir? Who are you supposed to be? Said Bakshio, looking at me suspiciously. I don't have time to prattle with children. Wow, that was a new kind of feeling, in a way. It had been a long time since anyone was this condescending to me, you know? When I wanted to be treated like a child, people treated me like a grown up. When I wanted to be treated like a grown up, people treated me like a child. What a nuisance. Keeping these thoughts to myself, I put my right hand on my chest and bowed in the style of the Austrian nobility. My apologies, sir. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Rudius Greyrat. Bakshialb's brow twitched slightly. Rudius Greyrat, you say? That's correct. While I blush to admit it, I am a small, unworthy part of the same Greyrat clan that is counted among Assur's high nobility. Hmm. But the Greyrat families use the names of the ancient wind gods to distinguish themselves, do they not? That is true, sir. I belong to a branch family and therefore have no right to use one. The instant the words branch family left my mouth, I could see the caution in Bakshial's eyes give way to disdain. But before he could say anything, I indicated Eris with a palm of my hand. However, Lady Eris here is a true-born member of the Boreas Greyrat family. When I clapped her lightly on the back, Eris took a step forward as well. She looked at me in surprise for a moment, but didn't panic. At first, she folded her arms and spread her feet to shoulder width, but quickly realized that wasn't right. Her second impulse was to reach for the edges of her skirt so she could curtsy. Unfortunately, she wasn't wearing a skirt. She finally settled on putting her hand to her chest and bowing as I had. Uh, I am Eris Boreas Greyrat, daughter of Philip Boreas Greyrat. A pleasure to acquaint you, sir. Her delivery was a little stiff. Also, I felt like she'd messed up that last bit. I glanced over at Bakshiel's face. It was hard to tell how he was taking this, but whatever. He just had to lean hard on the influence of Eris's family here. Or we just had to lean hard on the influence of Eris's family here. Hmm. And what is the daughter of an Assyrian noble doing here, pray tell? That was certainly the obvious question at this point. Fortunately, there was no need for us to answer it with anything but the truth. Sir, are you familiar with the calamity that befell the Fitoa region some 2 years ago? Course. Many Assyrians were teleported all around the world, as I understand. That's correct. The young lady and myself were two of those affected. I explained it to Bakshiel. I had escorted Eris all the way across the Demon Continent with Regerd as our hired bodyguard. When crossing over to the Millis continent, we'd barely managed to afford the voyage by selling all our assets, but we didn't have enough funds to pay for the journey from Millis to the central continent. In particular, the cost for Regerd's passage was simply too high. Accordingly, we turned to Sir Galgard for help, as he both was an old acquaintance of the Greyrat family and a personal friend of Weegeard's, being kind enough to write us a letter. This story wasn't quite the truth, of course, but felt close enough. The young lady may be dressed as an adventurer at the moment, but that's solely because we didn't want any ruffians realizing that she's of noble birth. I'm sure you can understand the potential dangers, Duke Buckshell. I see, said Bakshiel, the expression on his face still sour. So that's how it is. You're in league with that Fatoa search and rescue squad that's been causing no end of trouble in Milition recently. Are you? Uh, what? No, no, what are you talking about, sir? I've never heard the name Arius Boreas Greyrat before, said Bakshiel with a distinctly swine-like snort. However, I am familiar with a certain Paul Greyrat, a thuggish little man who's supposedly taken to stealing slaves by force. Oh, lovely. Daddy's got a real reputation. Let me make let me make sure I understand you, Duke Bakshiel. You believe that Sir Galgard's letter is a forgery and Lady Eris is not truly a member of the Assyrian nobility, yes? Or nobility, yes? And you take us for mere lackeys of this worthless lecher Paul Greyrat, who drinks all day, lashes out his own son, has smelly feet, and causes his poor daughter no end of worry. Indeed. Honestly, now, what a terrible thing to say. Paul was trying his best out there. To be sure, he had his flaws, and some of his methods might be less than perfect, but to dismiss him as worthless? That was just offensive. May I ask why you concluded that the seal on our letter was inauthentic? I said, pointing to the envelope on Bakshiel's desk. The man frowned slightly and nodded. It's not uncommon for forgeries of the missionary not seal to circulate on the black market. Really? That was the first I'd ever heard of it. And why do you think that my employer, Lady Eris, is not who she claims to be? Ha! Did you really expect me to believe this rustic boor of a swordswoman was the daughter of an Assyrian noble? I glanced over at Eris, who'd assumed her usual cross-arm pose. Our arms weren't marked by any scars, they were tan and more tightly muscular than your average young adventurers. Not exactly what you expect from a sheltered little princess, to be sure. Ah, I said with a small snort of laughter. It appears you're not familiar with Sir Saros, then. Saros? Mean the lord of the Fatoa region? Apparently you recognize that name, at least. Good. I do. He's also Eris's grandfather, and the man who chose to nurture her talents with a sword from a young age. What? Why would he do such a thing? This is something of a family secret, but it was decided some time ago that Lady Eris would marry into the Notos family, and Sir Saros detests the current head of that house. I see. Just to be perfectly clear, I was implying that Eris had been trained into a savage little warrior so that she might one day murder the head of the Nonos family in his bedroom. Fortunately, Eris seemed puzzled by my words. If she'd understood what I was saying, I probably would have lost a few teeth at this point. For that reason, among others, For that reason, among others, the young lady must return to Basura. Should you insist that she's an impostor, we'll simply have to turn back to Milashion and file an appeal with the appropriate authorities. I had no idea who those appropriate authorities would even be in this case, or in this case, of course. It wasn't something I'd be bothered looking into. If you want me to believe all this, then show me some sort of proof. Sir Galgard's letter is surely proof enough. This is absurd. You're arguing in circles. So what if I am? Look, Duke Bakshiel, do you really want to make an enemy of the Asuran Grey Rat family? Crap, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Fortunately, the threat I'd blurted out did seem to have some sort of effect, judging from how sharply Duke Bakshiel was glaring at me. Very well, then. I'll permit you and the young lady to book passage, then. But our guard, by my authority as a duke, I will assign a few knights to escort you. Surely that would be preferable to the protection of this demon. Compared to granting a demon passage, Bakshiel preferred to loan us a couple of his own men. He seemed stubbornly determined to not let Regent through, though, no matter what. I hadn't seen this sort of thing with my own eyes before, but the discrimination against demonkind on this continent was evidently worse than I imagined. What option did we even have at this point? Should we just try to arrange passage for Regent separately? I could easily see that resulting in another bloody battle against a group of smugglers. It really didn't feel too appealing. But just as I was considering my response, there was a sharp knock at the door. What is it? I'm in the middle of something, said Bakshiel, looking a bit suspicious. The person outside didn't wait for permission to enter. The door swung open, and a blonde woman in blue armor stepped into the room. Pardon me. I was told that a certain dead-end Regent was in here. Mother? It was Zenith. Huh? Everyone else in the room turned in unison to look at her. The woman stared down at me, looking somewhat miffed. I'm a single woman. I don't have any children, let alone one as old as you. What? Say what now? Come on, Mom. Did you lose your memory since the last time I saw you? Oh, maybe she just got sick of Paul's nonsense. As I looked more closely at the woman, though, I began to notice a few details in which she differed from my mother. After years apart, I couldn't remember Zenith perfectly, but the shape of this woman's face and the color of her hair were very subtly different. It wasn't her, after all. I'm sorry, my mother's missing, and you look a great deal like her. I see. Great. Now she was looking at me with pity in her eyes. Maybe she pegged me as a lonely lost child or something. People didn't treat me like a kid too often these days, but I still looked like one at least. With a snort, Duke Bakshiel glared at the armored woman. Well, if it isn't our freshly demoted temple knight, do you need something from me? A spirit has appeared in Millis territory. Any diligent member of my order would come running at that news. You don't assume you're posted here for another 10 days. Don't stick your nose where it doesn't belong. Where it doesn't belong? What a strange thing to say, Duke Bakshiel. To be sure, I haven't yet officially assumed my duties here, but my predecessor has already departed for Milashion. When problems arise at a checkpoint, it is the Temple Knight's responsibility to address them, correct? And yet I seem to be the only Temple Knight in this room. Would you care to explain that? The diatribe left the man at a loss for words. He stammered slightly, his face a bit pale. A, a team of 2 leaders should... Oh, hold on. Hold on. A team of 2 leaders should oversee the defense of every customs port or post. That is an ironclad rule established by the Millis Church, Duke Bakshiel. Surely you don't intend to defy it? Of course not. I only thought, well, you only just arrived here. Why not take a few days to relax and grow accustomed to the city? That won't be necessary. From the look on Duke Piggy's face, he might have thought he was in line to be slaughtered. I was really going to enjoy the next time I got to eat some pork. Now then, could you explain what was being discussed here? All in all, it seemed like this Lady Knight was on equal footing with Bakshiel here. Normally, a duke would be at the very top of the aristocratic pecking order, but in the holy country of Milis, the church was extremely powerful in its own right. That system probably had something to do with this. Well, as it happens, Duke Bakshiel proceeded to summarize the situation. At times, he threw in remarks based solely on his own assumptions, so I had to interject a few corrections. The knight listened to the whole story in silence, then looked over our party. That man certainly is a demon, isn't he? She narrowed her eyes while studying Rager, but as she turned to Eris, her expression finally softened. Finally, she met my gaze and put a hand to her chin thoughtfully. Young man, you thought I was your mother, yes? Might I ask her name? It's Zenith. Zenith Greyrat. And your father's? I glanced over at Bakshiel. Man, this is going to be awkward. Paul Greyrat. Understandably enough, the Duke's eyes went wide. I just had to insist that my father was a totally different person, not that scumbag back in Milicion. My daddy was basically a saint. He'd even give you money if you punched him a few times. I see, remembered the knight, and then for some reason she squatted down and wrapped her arms around me. Huh? This came as something of a surprise to say the least. I can't imagine what you've gone through. Not only was she hugging me, but now she was stroking my head as well. That wasn't the softest of embraces, thanks to that thick armor she had on, but at least I was getting a nice whiff of feminine fragrance. Naturally, my little buddy downstairs didn't even twitch. Huh. What's the matter, my boy? I thought you loved the smell of a slightly sweaty woman. Why, just the other day it only took one whiff of Eris to get you going. Glancing over at the young lady in question, I found her staring at us with her eyes wide open and her hands clenched in fists. Talk about terrifying. Miss? After patting me a few times on the head, the knight rose to her feet once again, and instead of looking in my direction, she turned back to face Duke Bakshel. I'll take these three under my personal protection. What? Sputtered Bakshel. One of them is a demon woman. Keeping him in the corner of her eye, the knight snatched Regent's letter from my hands and quickly looked it over. This letter is authentic, incidentally. I recognize Sir Galgard's handwriting when I see it. Would you ignore the teachings of the Millis Church completely? What sort of temple knight are you? At this point, Eris let out a little, oh. The little lady knight turned toward her for a moment and winked. I was starting to feel completely lost. I'm a captain of the Shield Company, and I'm quite serious about this. Pah! A captain demoted for losing her entire unit. Aren't your own circumstances somewhat similar? No, my mistake. I at least completed my mission, whereas you simply abandoned your duty. Duke Bakshel ground his teeth together and growled. From the sound of things, he'd been sent here as some sort of punishment as well. Once you knew that little detail, his grand title actually seemed more pathetic than intimidating. There was something like real hatred in his eyes now. Look, woman, I don't care how powerful your family is. This sort of insolence will not. Bakshel wasn't able to finish his sentence. Halfway through it, the knight had bowed her head to him. I apologize. My words were uncalled for. Since I've been assigned here, I have no desire to put myself in conflict with you. However, this particular matter was of personal significance for me. I hope you'll forgive my rudeness. It was seriously impressive timing. She had fired off everything she wanted to say, but then apologized at once. You could see the anger on Bakshiel's face fading. I had to try and imitate her next time I was really pissed somebody off. Personal significance? Yes, said the knight with a small nod to her dubious colleague. She then dropped a hand onto my shoulder. This boy is my nephew, you see. Pardon? Therese Latria was the fourth-born daughter of the Latria family, a cornerstone of the Millis nobility. She was also a highly promising knight who had won the rank of captain in the Temple Knights at a remarkably young age. Count Latria was her father, and Zenith Greyrat was her sister. Once he learned that I was a blood relative of, or once he learned that I was a blood relative of Therese, Duke Bakshiel's face took on a resigned expression. With a reluctant sigh, he agreed to waive the fare for my party's passage to the central continent. At the moment, I was in an inn in Westport, wrapped in Therese's arms. Only Eris, Therese, and myself were in the room at the moment. Perhaps sensing it might make things awkward if we stayed, Regent had slipped away for the moment. You know, Rudius, my sister told me all about you in her letters. Did she really? What did she say about me? That you're adorable, mainly. I can't say that was the first word that came to mind when I saw you in that office, but now I get it. You're cute as a button, all right. Even as she spoke, Therese was nuzzling her face affectionately against the back of my neck. This was a bit of an unusual experience for me. Over the last 13 years, quite a few people have described me as creepy, impudent, or suspicious. Zenith had to be the only one who'd ever called me cute. In any case, despite the fact that I was currently being embraced by a beautiful woman with large breasts, for some strange reason, the railgun between my legs wasn't ready to fire off any coins. Now that I thought about it, my victory never did stand up for Zenith either, and I never felt any interest in getting more friendly than necessary with Norn. Is that just because they were my relatives? Therese, can you let go of Rudy? Or sorry, Therese, can you let go of Rudius already? Eris watched us with her chin propped on one hand, drumming her fingers irritably against the table. This is a bit of jealousy, perhaps. It wasn't easy being such a playboy. I can understand how you feel, Miss Eris, but there's no telling when I'll see Rudius again, and by the time we're reunited, he'll most likely have lost all vestiges of the cuteness he now possesses. My sincerest apologies, but I'd like to make some memories with him while I can. Therese proceeded to nuzzle me even more rigorously than before, showing no signs of contrition whatsoever. Uh, can I please, or can I ask why you're speaking so politely to Eris? because I owe her my life. Now that piqued my interest. On the day Eris went out to hunt goblins near Milashion, she had apparently rescued Therese from a group of assassins who surrounded her. Therese had been on duty defending a certain important personage at the time. If Eris hadn't shown up when she did, both Therese and her charge would have lost their lives. This was all news to me. When I looked over at Eris, she had a slightly embarrassed expression on her face. Sorry, I forgot to tell you any about this, or tell you about any of this. From what Eris told me, once she got back to the inn and saw how depressed I was, she'd forgotten all about everything else and had taken place that day. It was basically my fault, huh? In that case, I couldn't really complain. Therese was still groping me like crazy, incidentally, because since she was still sitting behind me, it was hard to say for sure. But I bet the woman had a pretty blissful expression on her face. This didn't nauseate me or anything. It was definitely kind of awkward, though. I mean, I had a lady pressing her breasts against me and playing with my body, and I wasn't remotely excited. It was a very unfamiliar feeling. Seriously, though, you are just too cute, Rudius. I could just eat you up. Huh? Sorry, does that mean you want to sleep with me? Therese's response to this modest attempt at humor was to cover my mouth with her hand. You're definitely cuter when you stay quiet. Hearing you talk brings Paul Greyrat to mind. It seemed as if my aunt wasn't a big fan of my dad. Petting me like a puppy, she went ahead and changed the subject. Anyway, Commander Gash never changes, huh? He must have known how Duke Baxia would react to a letter like that, but he went ahead and wrote it anyway. Galgard Nash Venek was, in fact, the man in command of the Missionary Knights of Milis. This order was essentially a mercenary force that dispatched young knights to turbulent regions of the world, where they could gain real combat experience while also spreading the teachings of the Milis Church. At present, they were in between campaigns and had returned to Milis to bolster their ranks with new recruits. Regard's buddy, Gash, aka Galgard, had been their leader for some time now. He'd survived a disastrous expedition to the Demon Continent as a young knight, and in the decades since, he'd reshaped his order into the strongest force it had ever been. He was a brusque and quiet man who rarely so much as smiled, but he was also known for his fairness and impartiality towards even the worst of villains. In Milis, no one was even considered to be a full-fledged knight until they experienced at least one expedition with the missionary knights. These campaigns were often highly dangerous. With Gash in charge, more than 90% of the young knights dispatched now returned alive. This was the reason many hailed him as the greatest commander the order had ever known. Every knight in the three holy military orders respected Gash deeply. Many even owed him their lives. Of course, he's also famous for writing little and saying less. On the battlefield, he would snap off orders quickly and precisely, but at most other times he was too apathetic to even return an officer's greeting. He almost never wrote letters of any kind and merely rubber stamped reports that others wrote. So few people had ever seen his handwriting that fake documents routinely circulated in his name. Regard had described him as a talkative and passionate man, but of course Regard was pretty close-mouthed himself. Maybe his standards for talkative differed from ours. Or maybe Gash just acted differently around him. Okay, look, interrupted Eris. Are you ever going to let go of him? I could see the girl was about 5 seconds of snapping at this point, so I finally slipped out of Therese's grasp. Oh, my nice warm Rudius. My aunt looked mildly heartbroken, but it wasn't her body, I wasn't her body pillow. And it's not like I was really enjoying the experience anyway. Come here, Rudius. Just as I ordered, I sat down next to Eris. She promptly grabbed hold of my hand. Um, Within seconds, the girl was blushing to the tips of her ears. Staring at the side of her face as she glared forward, I couldn't help smiling. Therese, on the other hand, was busy punching a pillow on the bed. Understandable. Why punch the wall, or why not punch the wall instead? That's much more satisfying in my experience. Ha! Enjoy your youth while you have it, kids. Therese shook her head with a sigh and then looked at us with a more serious expression. Right. There's one thing I wanted to warn you about, Rudius. It might not matter too much since you're about to leave Millis, but I think you need to be aware of it. She paused for a moment after this long lead in and then continued firmly. You'd be smarter not to mention the word spurred within this country's borders. But why's that? One of the Millis Church's oldest teachings holds that demon kind should be totally expelled. Specifically, this meant that all demons should be driven from the Millis continent. It was currently something of a dead doctrine that few took seriously, but the Temple Knights were still striving to put that into practice. And of course, the spared were particularly infamous, even among the demonic races. If word got out about one moving through Millis, the knights would come after him with everything they had, even if he wasn't really what he claimed to be. Given everything that he's done for you and Eris, I have to make an exception in his case. But ordinarily, I wouldn't have overlooked this. Don't be ridiculous, said Eris coldly. You'd never beat Regard in a million years, no matter how many people you threw at him. I suppose you might be right about that, Miss Eris, said Therese, smiling wryly. But the Temple Knights are a bunch of fanatics, I'm afraid, myself included. We'd fight that battle, even if we knew we didn't stand a chance. There was apparently quite a few people like this among the holy knights of Milis, and so, she emphasized, we should be very careful if we ever return to this continent. The whole incident really drove home just how deep seated humanity's prejudices towards demonkind were. I felt like it might be tough to work on the reputation of the spirit from here on out. Also, should anyone learn that I venerated Roxy like a god, I might end up getting tortured by some heavy breathing inquisitor or something. It's probably best to keep my personal religion to myself. Our trip across the sea went smoothly this time around. My aunt made sure we were well prepared for the voyage. Not only did she provide all the provisions we need, she even got us some sort of medicine for seasickness. I was under the impression that medicine was kind of a neglected field in this world, but evidently they didn't rely on healing magic for everything. There were remedies for this sort of illness, at least. That said, such medicines didn't come cheap. Good thing I had relatives in high places. Therese took particular care to accommodate Eris's every need. There was always some hostility in her eyes when she looked at Regerd, but what can you do? People don't change their whole perspective on the world overnight. Thanks to the medicine Therese had procured, Eris spent most of our voyage mildly uncomfortable rather than completely miserable, which meant she wasn't begging me to use healing on her all the time. To be perfectly honest, that was a little disappointing. I've been hoping to see her all meek and mild again, but on the plus side, my super meter didn't charge up. I never unleashed my Buster Wolf, and Eris didn't need to hit me with a sunny punch. It was business as usual. Eris did seem to be a bit anxious after last time, though, so she stuck to me like glue once we got on the boat. She definitely wasn't meek at any point, but at least I got to see her hopping around in delight as we looked out to the sea. That was good enough for me. One of the sailors did take the opportunity to tease us, though. Hey there, lovebirds. You two getting hitched in the King Dragon realm or what? You bet, I said, putting an arm around Eris's shoulder with a grin. It's going to be one crazy wedding. At this point, Eris punched me in the face. It's way too early for us to get married, stupid. Despite the violence, she didn't seem too displeased by the idea herself, or the idea itself, judging from the way she fidgeted around afterward. The public teasing part was probably the main issue. If I wanted to bring up the subject, it should be in a nice, quiet place, with just the two of us, and only once the right mood had been established. Eris was a monster of a swordswoman by now, but she was still an innocent maiden when it came to romance. Still, marriage, huh? Philip and the others had certainly tried to push the two of us together, but now nobody even knew where they were. Paul did not, or did say not to be too optimistic. It wasn't just Philip, Aros, and company, of course. Zenith, Lilia, and little Aisha were still missing too. There was no news of Sylphie either. Heck, we didn't even know if Ghislaine was still alive. There's so many reasons to be anxious. Still, I couldn't let myself sink into pessimism. By the time we got back to Fatoa, maybe everyone would be waiting for us there, safe and sound. I knew the idea was absurd. I knew it wasn't remotely likely. But at the same time, tearing my hair out with worry wasn't going to do any good at the moment. That was what I told myself, at least. For better or worse, we put the Millis continent behind us. Excuse me, I'm going to take a sip of water. At about the same time Rudius and his party set sail for Millis, Roxy McGurdia was returning to her hometown for the first time in many years. The meagered village hadn't changed at all, and everyone she knew there looked pretty much the same as well. There were more residents than before, perhaps, but it was still an eerily quiet place. Roxy hadn't found this silence strange as a child, but now that she'd traveled all around the world, she could say with confidence that it was highly unusual. You wouldn't hear a single voice speaking in this village, and yet, its people were communicating perfectly. When the residents of the village spotted Roxy, they just stood there and stared at her. She knew they were attempting to speak to her through telepathy, the unique innate ability that set the Meagard race apart from other demons. But she couldn't tell what they were saying. All she could make out was a faint sort of buzzing noise. Roxy couldn't respond to their words. After some time, her parents appeared. The years hadn't changed them either. They welcomed their daughter with joyful words and asked her if she'd come all this way alone in voices full of concern. Elena Lise and Tallhand had chosen to wait outside the village. Perhaps they thought she would rather have some privacy for this. Roxy told her parents about her travels in a calm, dispassionate voice. They expressed surprise at her story, but with relief on their faces, told her to stay as long as she liked. But Roxy felt like an outsider here, even as she was speaking to her own parents. Their words of concern and welcome were all spoken in a language that was foreign to them. Her people never said anything truly important with their mouths, especially not when they wanted to express love or affection. It was entirely possible her parents were sincerely worried about her from the bottom of their hearts, but they had no way to convey that to Roxy. She couldn't use telepathy, so their messages couldn't get across to her. That made her feel terribly lonely. Staying here for any length of time would just be painful. She'd just be rubbing her own nose in the fact that she wasn't part of a true part of the Meekard people. So she decided to set out again immediately. You're really leaving already? Her father asked, his expression concerned. Yes. Can't you at least stay a single night? Roxy shook her head expressionlessly. I'm I'm sorry, but this journey really is an urgent one. I just stopped by since I was in the neighborhood. When can you come back again, dear? I don't know, Roxy replied honestly. I might not come back at all. It was her mother's turn to look concerned now. Oh, Roxy, surely you can make time to visit us every 20 years or so. I suppose, she replied, her tone noncommittal. Maybe I'll stop by within the next 50 years then. Really? You promise? We'll be waiting then. All right, said Roxy, nodding ambiguously. At this point, she noticed that her mother had quietly begun to cry. Uh, Mom? Oh, I'm sorry. I told myself I wasn't going to cry, but I'm sorry, dear. At the sight of those tears, something gave way inside Roxy. Before she knew it, she was hugging her mother tightly, and then her father had wrapped his arms around the both of them. In that moment, Roxy finally realized that words and language were far from everything. In the end, she stayed in the Meekerd village for about 3 days, and for the first time in ages, she actually managed to relax a little. The kennel master of Dead End was, in fact, Rudius Greyrat. It had taken some time for Roxy to admit this to herself. After reaching the Demon Continent, her party had traveled steadily northward in search of information about Rudius. The further north they went, the more people recognized his name. Roxy was getting closer, but at the same time, it felt like there was something off about this. Everyone who'd seen Rudius been or described him in ways that overlapped with stories about the Dead End impersonators. Several times in the course of their journey, Tallhand pointed out that this human boy who could cast spells silently sounded exactly like the Kennel Master from that party. In truth, Roxy had realized this herself at an early stage. She just didn't want to admit to herself that she'd passed her pupil on the road without even realizing it. By the time they reached the city of Rikarisu, however, she had no choice but to do so. In that city, she learned of the Dead End incident that took place there 2 years ago. She also heard the story of a man named Nokopara, whom she'd once been in a party with. Given what her parents had told her when she stopped by their village, all the pieces fit together. Roxy simply had to admit the truth. The kennel master had to be Rudius. At that moment, or at the moment, Roxy was in a Rikarisu bar with her old comrade Nokopara. When she'd asked about Rudius, he'd been initially hesitant to say much. It seemed he'd taken up a somewhat disrespectable line of work at some point. Roxy wasn't about to judge him for that, however. On the Demon Continent, you had to do what you had to do if you wanted to survive. I see. So, Blaze died on the job, huh? Yep. Poor bastard got swallowed whole by a red hood cobra. It had been years since Roxy left the Demon Continent. The two of them had a lot of catching up to do, and yet they'd found themselves mostly talking about the old days. Closing her eyes, Roxy thought about Blaze. The man had a pig's face and a filthy mouth. He cussed at Roxy every time she messed up. Still, he wasn't a bad guy deep down, and you couldn't have asked for a more reliable warrior. According to Nokopara, Blaze was a veteran leader of a B-ranked adventuring party at the time of his death. On the Demon Continent, that was no small accomplishment. Roxy was impressed at how far her sharp-tongued old colleague had come. At the same time, though, his party was apparently called Super Blazers. Seriously? Man never was good at at naming things. In any case, Nogapara said the monster that wiped out Blaze's team of veterans was then slain by Rudius and his group, who'd only just formed their own party. In other words, he'd taken down an A-ranked monster right after becoming an adventurer. There wasn't a chance in hell Roxy could have managed that back in the day. But it did sound like Rudius, all right. The thought put a small smile on her face. Sipping on his drink, a typically strong Demon Continent liquor, Nokapara murmured, "You really changed, Roxy." Roxy looked down at her reflection in her drink and wondered if this was true. Have I? It's kind of hard for me to tell. Yeah, you seem a lot more grown up than you used to. What? Are you making fun of me or something? By the time she started adventuring with Nokapara and Blaze, Roxy had already looked like a full grown Meagard. Her face and figure hadn't changed significantly since then. She was perfectly aware that she looked very much the same. Nah, I'm serious. It's like your general vibe, I guess. You used to come off more like a kid, you know? Well, I've put a lot of years behind me since then, you know? Even if it doesn't look that way. Roxy shrugged, tossed a handful of roasted snacks in her mouth, and crunched away. These things were actually stone treant seeds. She didn't find them particularly tasty, but for some reason it was hard to stop shoveling them in your mouth once you got started. This is exactly what I'm talking about, though. Back in the day, you used to be desperate to get everyone to think of you as a grown up. You probably would have been on cloud nine if I said something like that. Is that right? Yes, I suppose I was like that for a while. That was back when she didn't properly understand her own skills and limitations. In those days, Roxy had worked furiously to convince people that she was an adult and and someone to be taken seriously. She'd bragged of her talents as a magician and her competence with every aspect of magic. She'd insisted she was capable of anything. Her opinion of herself had been completely reversed since then, but the reputation she built up continued to spread on its own. These days, it felt like people were constantly expecting her to pull off things she couldn't do. She'd been getting a lot of surprised reactions from people on the Demon Continent when she told them she was Rudius's former teacher. For some reason, the boy had been telling everyone that he owed his skills to the teachings of his master. Naturally, they'd assumed that Roxy must be capable of silent spellcasting as well, which she most definitely was not. Perhaps Roxy's own master, who just once disparaged her in the harshest terms, had experienced feelings similar to these. If that was the case, Roxy felt bad about how she responded. It was a hard thing to be the mentor of someone more talented than you. Apparently, you had to experience this for yourself before you truly understood it. In Roxy's case, it was a sort of embarrassment as well as pride. She no longer wanted Rudius to stop calling her his master. For some reason, the fact that he totally ignored her orders on that point made her kind of happy. Anyway, you haven't changed one bit, Nokopara. Oh, yeah? Yeah, except physically, of course. The man had always been greedy for money and had a tendency to prey on the weak. That was obviously still the case. Back in the day, Roxy had often thought he was the last person she'd ever wanted to make an enemy of. Hey, what's that supposed to mean? You imply I'm all old and wrinkly now? Sure, you could put it that way. You've gotten old, Nokopara. And wrinkly. Ha! You got a mouth on you now, girl. Nokopara let out a whinny of sarcastic laughter and then sighed. Grr. Man, this really takes me back. I know what you mean. In the old days, there would have been two others at this table. A boy who was always cursing furiously at Nokopara, and another boy who'd break up their fights with a sigh. Those two were both gone now, leaving only two middle-aged ex-adventurers behind. True, one of them hadn't aged too much due to her race, but the old days were never coming back. That much was for sure. The two of them ended up reminiscing in the bar for hours, right up until Nokopara finally drank himself under the table. Roxy had seen her parents and now a very old acquaintance. That alone meant her voyage up here hadn't been a waste of time. She was truly, deeply happy that she'd come. Had Rudius already reached Milashion by now? Roxy wondered. Assuming they passed each other by a windport, he had likely left this continent a good 6 months ago. Rainy season had just been about to start, true, but the Holy Swords Highway was a safe, easy road to follow. Unless he'd stopped off at an elf dwarf or dwarf settlement, his party would surely have made it to the city by now. In other words, she didn't have to search for him in the first place. Just as Paul had assumed in the letter, the boy was fine on his own. He forged his way across the entire demon continent in no time at all, along with that Eris girl he was teleported with. Most travelers would have fallen prey to its dangers or struggled to make progress, but he'd made it look easy. On top of it all, he'd somehow recruited into his party a member of the spurred race Roxy had always feared. Your pupils, uh, your pupils, one impressive kid, Roxy. Oh, sorry, your pupil's one impressive kid, Roxy. Indeed, I can hardly believe he's actually Paul's son. Alina, Lisa, and Tallhand were full of compliments as well. The way Roxy saw things, though, it didn't really matter whose pupil or son Rudius was. The boy had been a prodigy from the get-go. He could have pulled this off just fine even if she'd never even met him. But putting all that aside, what shall we do now then? Roxy paused to consider what shall we do now then? Roxy paused to consider Alina Lisa's question. The initial goal of this journey had been finding Rudius, but he was probably safe in Milashion by now. Roxy very much wanted to see him, but at the same time, she didn't want to abandon their broader objective. Let's search the northwest region of the Demon Continent. They tracked down Rudius, but the other three members of his family were still missing. On the road here, they'd already found a number of displaced humans from the Fatoa region. There were probably some in the northwest as well. Sure you don't want to go see your pupil? Asked Tall Hand. Yes, I'm sure, said Roxy with a slight nod. For one thing, if he figured out she'd passed him by without even realizing it, or what if he figured out she'd passed him by without even realizing it? That would just be too humiliating. Her standing as his master was on shaky ground as it was. There are plenty of cities on the Demon Continent we haven't checked yet. Let's keep moving through them one by one, just like we've been doing. Tallhand and Aline Elise just looked at each other and chuckled. One way or another, Roxy McGurdia's voyage wasn't over yet. Oh, it's water. Extra Chapter 1, Dragon Meat, Nanahoshi style. We'd arrived at the city of Eastport in the Dragon King realm, the biggest port city in the entire world. People here spoke the same language as in the Holy Country of Milis, but the names and appearances of the shops were subtly different. Still, this was the fourth port city that I'd seen, so the place didn't really feel like anything new. Once we were off the boat, I got us right to work on the routine task of finding ourselves an inn. As we were walking along the street, however, Eris paused and murmured, "Something smells good. Like the scent of your neck right after a training session? I'm a big fan of that one personally. but with one sniff of the air, I understood what Eris meant. There was certainly a tempting aroma wafting around the area. I glanced up towards the sun sitting high in the sky. Now that I thought of it, my stomach was feeling a bit empty at the moment. I think it might be time for lunch. Yeah, Eris agreed, nodding slightly. The two of us had our eyes fixed on the restaurant that seemed to be the source of this interesting smell. Its exterior was less than promising. The brick walls were in terrible shape with visible holes here and there, and the wooden sign up top was so grimy and weathered that it was impossible to read. Even the front door was about ready to fall off its hinges. It looked like an abandoned house more than a fine dining establishment. However, the smell drifting from its interior was a whole different story. It wasn't the sort of rich fragrance that would get a man's mouth, or it wasn't the sort of rich fragrance that would get a man's mouth watering immediately, but there was something kind of nostalgic about it. I felt my stomach rumbling. You want to go in there? Regent's question startled me slightly. I'd been pondering whether, or been wandering closer to the restaurant without even realizing it. Uh, yes. Is that a problem? Don't you always say that we should eat at more visually appealing restaurants? I do remember saying something to that effect, yes, but that was back on the Demon Continent, where you could pretty much count on a shabby looking place to have truly awful food. Sometimes you'd find an exception to the rule where everything was much better than expected, but one way or another, I wouldn't normally have set foot in a place that looked like this. For some reason, though, I felt really drawn to this one. Change of pace can't hurt, right? Well, if you say so. With Richard and Eris tagging along, I pushed open the front door. They protested loudly at this cruel and unusual punishment, or cruel and unusual treatment. Unsurprisingly, the restaurant itself was also on the grimy side. Well, maybe grimy wasn't quite the right word. It looked clean enough to serve as a place to eat, at least. More than anything else, it was just shabby. Half the chairs seemed to be missing legs, most of the tables were cracked, there were shallow holes all over the floor. As one might expect, there were no other customers inside. We've got the whole place to ourselves, murmured Eris cheerfully. I guess she didn't find anything suspicious about a restaurant being totally empty at lunchtime. It was enough to make me anxious, of course, but for some reason my sense of anticipation was still stronger. Welcome, folks. As the three of us took our seats, a skeleton thin man approached us with a menu. Was he the one who ran this place, maybe? I had to say, his face was seriously gloomy. I mean, it was obvious at a glance that the shop wasn't doing booming business, but it couldn't hurt to at least slap on a fake smile for your customers. Rudius, are you sure we shouldn't reconsider this? Wow, it wasn't every day Regis second guessed me like this. Still, you can't go around judging people by their appearances, right? Uh, now, the food might be delicious, right? Smiling awkwardly at my words, the skeletal man opened his menu for us. There were only two items listed on it: dragon meat, Nanahoshi style, alba fish stew. Back in Milashion, the restaurants typically gave you more than 10 options to choose from. Even bars that mostly focused on their booze offered a bit more variety than this. On the plus side, the prices here were low. Maybe it all canceled out. What'll it be, folks? The choice was meat or fish, huh? The alba fish was a species native to the seas down south. It was a standard part of people's diets in this part of the world. I'd already tried some back in Westport. The menu said it was a stew, but in this case, that probably meant more of a, or meant a sort of fish and vegetable soup. It was supposedly a very common dish in the Dragon King or the King Dragon realm. On the other hand, though, we had dragon meat Nanahoshi style. I'd never even heard of this one before. I knew that king dragons resided in a nearby mountain range that took its name from them. They were said to be capable of manipulating gravity itself. Was this actually the meat of those monsters, or maybe something that looked and tasted very similar? Also, what did Nanahoshi mean? The term was totally new to me, though it almost sounded Japanese. Of course, I wasn't too familiar with the various cuisines of the world. Maybe it was a popular cooking method in the King Dragon realm. One way or another, it definitely caught my interest. I'll take the meat. Me too. Three of the meat, then. Once his carnivorous guests had placed their orders, the skeletal man vanished back in the kitchen expressionlessly. There was no water provided, not that I expected any different. As a general rule, you didn't get much of anything for free in this world. This called for some self-service. I created cups with earth magic, filled them with water, and passed them to Regent and Eris. With a few ice cubes, you couldn't ask for a better tonic for a weary body. Eris gulped down the contents of her glass in seconds, chewed up the ice, and stuck her cup back out at me. Rudius, refill. Shaking my head ruefully, I filled it back up for her. Ordinarily, I might have told her to cast the spell herself, but we were inside a restaurant here. No reason to risk her messing it up and flooding the place. As always, Riju was just sipping at his water. The man was a fast eater, but he always took his time with his beverages. Anyway, or anyway, it doesn't seem like there's much information to be gathered in the city, does it? I guess not. Or, uh, I guess not. I kind of wanted to look at the swords a little longer, but oh, sorry. I guess not. I kind of wanted to look at the swords a little longer, but maybe we should just move on to the next city. There was a huge variety of bladed weapons on sale here. Even your average roadside stall had a range of swords on display. Eris had earlier been looking over some with shining eyes, but she soon realized that they were all blunt pieces of crap targeted at beginners who didn't know any better. Her skills as a fighter had come a long way, but that didn't mean she could tell a good sword from the bad one at a glance yet. Not too surprising, really. Hey, I'm coming in. Our conversation was abruptly interrupted by a loud bang. Oh, sorry. Hey, I'm coming in. Our conversation was abruptly interrupted by a loud bang. Someone had thrown the door open. A thuggish looking man stomped his way into the restaurant without even taking off his shoes. Not that anyone did here, granted. That wasn't really a thing. At the sound of this interloper's voice, the skeletal man emerged from the kitchen. Chagall. Hey there, Randolph. You finally in the mood to make the right decision today? My answer isn't going to change, no matter how many times you ask. Would you just leave, please? Ha! How long are you gonna keep this empty wreck of a place running, man? Until I die, of course. It's been in my family for generations. From the exchange, I could make a reasonable guess as to the situation here. Long story short, this business was struggling to survive. The proprietor had probably taken out all sorts of loans just to keep its doors open. This thug was probably some shady speculator who wanted to buy up the land cheap or something. Wait out here for a while at least. I've got customers at the moment. Customers! Oh, wow, you really do. Now that's a rare sight. I won't give up on this place. Not as long as I've got a single customer. Ha 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 ha! Snorting with laughter, the thuggish man dropped down in a nearby chair. With a sidelong glance in his direction, the skeletal man trudged back into the kitchen. It definitely sounded like times were tough. I didn't know all the details, of course, but if food was any good, maybe we could try to spread the word about this place. That man's looking at us. I had a feeling Eris might overreact to any eye contact from this guy, so I went ahead and covered her eyes with my hands. A problem like this needed to be resolved through the power of food, not by her fists of fury. Hey, Rudius, I can't see. Ugh, wait. Not my wrist, Eris. Ow, my bones. Poor delicate bones. Sorry for the wait, folks. As I was playing around with Eris, our food emerged from the kitchen. My eyes went wide at the sight of it. No way. Dragon meat, Nanahoshi style, was apparently, or sorry, dragon meat, Nanahoshi style, was apparently a meal with three distinct parts. First of all, there was a transparent vegetable soup of some kind. I could tell at a glance that it would have a simple, refreshing flavor. That was fine, standard stuff. The other two parts were a different story. First to the left, we had a staple food I hadn't seen once I'd come into this world. It was white rice, the emperor of all grains. No, wait. On second thought, the color wasn't quite right. There seemed to be other grains mixed in there as well. Okay, so multi-grain rice then. It had been so long since I saw anything of the kind I'd gotten since I saw anything of the kind that I'd gotten slightly mixed up. In any case, that certainly explained why the smell coming from this place had felt so nostalgic. He must have been cooking rice at the time. No wonder I'd been pulled in like a magnet. Finally, there was the third part of our meal. This consisted of golden brown chunks of deep fried goodness. In other words, it was, without a doubt, karage, which meant, although the soup wasn't exactly miso, the rice wasn't exactly white, this was a classic karage meal. I, I can't believe this. What is it, Rudius? Eris was looking at me dubiously, understandable since I was trembling and clutching the table with both hands. Uh, sorry, it's nothing. I never even dreamed that Japanese style fried food might exist in this world. The heavens had truly smiled upon me today. Maybe that man god character was finally starting to understand what I wanted out of this life. Okay then, let's go. Let's eat. Right now. Putting my hands together, I offered a quick prayer of thanks to all the spirits of the heavens and earth. Let's dig in. There was no chopsticks, naturally, so I shoveled a big chunk of rice into my mouth with a fork. Ah, a single tear trickled down my cheek. My previous life, my passion for rice knew no bounds. It was basically what I lived for, especially my late 20s. Must have gobbled down a gallon of the stuff every single day. I compared the rice to, or and compared to the rice I ate back then, this stuff was lousy. Under the Japanese taste ranking systems, it wouldn't even have earned a C. And yet, it was still rice. Real honest to goodness rice. For the first time in my life, I truly understood that all rice was created equal. But Rudius, what's the matter? Oh, it's nothing. Nothing at all. I wept silently as I ate, doing my best impression of a Japanese soldier who had just returned home after years in a Siberian internment camp. Every bite filled my mouth with a familiar, comforting flavor of rice. Oh, wait, there's not that much, is there? I should eat it with the side dishes. It was about the time I gave this karage a try. With a greedy stab of my fork, I skewered a deep fried piece of meat and brought it to my mouth. Urgh. Instantly, my joy gave way to shock. This was deep fried meat, to be sure, but it definitely wasn't karage. The coating was wet and oily. The meat inside was dry and tough. The more I chewed it, the stronger its rancid odor grew. It was actually making me nauseous. Anger bubbled up inside me. You expect me? You expect me to eat rice with this? I could eat rice all by myself, of course. I could eat unlimited amounts as long as I had a little salt. Yes, salted white rice was all the samurai my soul really needed. And yet, I couldn't manage to suppress my fury. This karage was nothing less than an act of blasphemy against rice itself. I want to see the chef right now. When the owner of the kitchen or the restaurant anxiously emerged from the kitchen, I started things off with a few compliments. First of all, the pseudo miso was quite passable. It was a simple, clear, salty vegetable soup, but it complemented the distinctive flavor of the multigrain rice very nicely. In combination, those two dishes almost felt like a complete meal all by themselves. Only a skilled artisan could have pulled that off. The way he looked at the or cooked the rice was also impressive. It seemed like he used the right quantity of water and the perfect amount of heat. In this, too, you could sense the touch of a veteran professional. Every grain I tasted brought a tear to my eye. If he'd gone just a little further and paid more attention to the quality of the water he was using, it would have been worthy of a perfect score. And I was perfectly willing to present him with a few megatons of delicious Rudius brand H2O. The stuff I carefully conjured out of thin air was tastier than anything sitting in your backyard well. With all that said, I moved on to the topic of the karage, or rather, the Nanahoshi style dragon meat. I shredded it. I shredded it thoroughly and brutally. That stuff wasn't fit for human consumption. How dare you serve it to a paying customer? Do you have any idea who I was? I was Rudius Greyrat, the party dead end, damn it. He'd paid dearly for this insult. Long story short, I flipped out on the guy like a psychotic celebrity chef in a particularly foul mood. In retrospect, I'm not even sure why I got so angry. Maybe the fact that I was still hungry had something to do with it. The Harrison Regent must have thought I'd lost my mind. By the end of that ugly episode, they had to drag me out of the place kicking and screaming. Honestly, I went too far. My love for rice had gotten the better of me, yes, but that didn't justify some of the things I said, especially since I was only an amateur myself. This world didn't have the kind of ingredients that were readily available back in Japan. Even the oil you needed to deep fry meat was probably of a much lower quality here. At the end of the day, I learned that some people in this world ate rice with side dishes and that deep frying was a thing here. That was fantastic news. So why the heck had I let myself get so furious? By the time we left his restaurant, the owner of the place had shriveled up completely, and I could see tears shining in his eyes. I'd definitely been a childish jerk. Let's do better next time, Rudius. The owner. Oh, business was terrible. The last several years, I'd barely gotten any visitors at all. Even when someone randomly came in, they never turned into a regular customer. I was sinking deeper and deeper into debt with nothing to show for it. To top it all off, today a customer hit me with an absolute barrage of criticism. Apparently, I wasn't getting my oil nearly hot enough, or trapping enough moisture in the meat. Oh, and I should have added sweet and sour seasoning before I put the coating on. By the end of his rant, the boy even told me that I'd chosen the wrong kind of meat in the first place. But dragon had been the backbone of this restaurant's menu for hundreds of years. What was I supposed to do if the problem was that basic? Man, that seriously startled or uh man, that seriously startled me. A man who bore a strong resemblance to a bandit broke the awkward silence. His name was Chagall Gargantus, and he'd been pestering me relentlessly for years now. Still, I think this ought to make things crystal clear, right? Your cooking's lousy enough that even a snot-nosed kid could rip it to pieces, man. Chagall had an ugly smirk plastered on his face, just like he always did. When his expression was serious, that man was reasonably good-looking, and he wasn't stupid either. He walked into the right room, dozens of subordinates would bow their heads to him. For some reason, he liked to dress up as a thug and sneer at me. Maybe he intended it as some sort of disguise. You're right, but look, I understand why you'd want to protect something that's been in your family for generations. The thing is, though, you don't have a head for business or the power to keep this place running. Those hits hit me like a punch to the gut. He was absolutely right. I was a hopeless businessman, and I didn't even have any talent as a chef either. My cooking was clearly atrocious and it couldn't satisfy even a child like that. That said, you got real skills in a different field. Everyone's got some jobs they're just better suited to than others, don't you think? I suppose so. I couldn't help but agree. All my determination had finally crumbled away, leaving only resignation in its wake. All right, you win. I'll close down my restaurant. This place had been founded 250 years ago. It had been passed through my generations of my family, but I'd failed to preserve that legacy. I just have to carry this disgrace with me for the rest of my days. On that day, High General Chagall Gargantus of the King Dragon Realm succeeded in recruiting a certain individual, namely Randolph Marianne, the Death God, ranked fourth among the 7 great powers. Why had Randolph suddenly accepted Chagall's offer after years of steadfast refusals? Very few would ever know the answer to that question.
Rudy is fucked up. Rudy is
A lot.
fucked up.
Yep.
He fucked
Yeah,
up
he did.
so bad.
Yeah,
Dude
he
was just
did.
trying to make some good rice, man. Like,
Dude,
jeez.
the
I mean, the
funny
rice
thing
sounded
is,
really good.
the funny thing is, if he hadn't just, if Rudius hadn't gone off on him like that, if he'd literally just given him constructive criticism on the meat,
Yeah.
dude, he probably could have saved that restaurant and his career.
Now
Well-
he's gonna become a hitman, and one of his first
No,
jobs is gonna be
no.
finding them.
Dude, no. The Death God is not a hitman. That's not what he is.
Oh wait,
He's-
wasn't there a character you talked about that like owned a restaurant and like became a hitman, or was
This
a hitman?
it's not a hitman. He's not a hitman. He's known as the God
what
of
am I-
Death. He's number 4
Oh,
on the
okay.
7 great powers. That's literally the thing I was talking about. This just happened. This is all right. So you have like Dragon God Orsted. You have
Yep.
the Sword God and all. Well, this is the Death God. He's insanely good with a sword. He
Mm.
didn't get that because like he's a hitman or an assassin or anything like that. He got that because of his ability.
Oh, okay.
Out of the
I see.
out of the 7 great powers,
Mhm.
like the 7 toughest sons of bitches out there, right?
Mhm.
This guy's number 4.
Oh shit.
That is who Rudius broke the spirit of.
Oh fuck.
I cannot for the life of me remember if it's the same person, but if it is, I'm laughing even more because Rudius is going to encounter this guy later. This is past where the anime is, by the way.
Mhm.
And it's not going to be fun for Rudius. And if he
He's
just
not gonna recognize him either, I bet.
kept his goddamn mouth shut.
He would have been
He's
probably been
normally
an
really
ally
nice
for
to
all we
everyone
know.
else, so yeah.
Rudius, like, I don't understand. He gets this whole feel. He's like, I'm Rudius of Dead End. God damn it! I was like, look, motherfucker, the most impressive person in Dead End is Regerd. It ain't you. You
Yeah.
need to
for
calm
real.
down. Take your ego and shove it up your butt. That's the only
Yeah.
useful place for it. Oh my goodness.
Yep. Well,
This
he's gonna
was
have
the
to eat a
part-
big old
This
slice of
was the
humble
part.
pie.
Yeah, this was the part I could not like ignore.
Mhm.
Once you were here, I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Sorry, pain pills have kicked in, so I'm.
I don't
not
know what
as
he
irritable.
looks like, but I hope that the skeletal frame was worth the fucking gloomy voice.
All right, so up to this point, none of this has been covered in the anime. So this is basically all
okay,
new
so we don't know what he
material
looks
for
like.
you. Yeah,
I see, okay.
No, not just this part, but like them trying to leave. the
Yeah.
And then
Bellis
like the
continent.
ant finally meeting with Rudius.
Yes,
Mhm.
that whole thing. Like she was actually there for a while, hanging out with them in the cart and everything. And she's like, "I don't get a chance to be an ant. Give me this moment." And I'm like, "Yeah,
Let me do this.
yeah."
Yeah.
So none of that was in the anime.
I'm not even in the
skipped-
anime.
They skipped all of that. She will
That's
be
kind
a
of
much
lame.
bigger
She seems
part.
extremely important.
She no, okay. So we do actually meet Rudius's aunt, but it's in the side story.
Yeah.
Oh.
The
is it like
Eris's day where she's fighting the goblins and everything, because
Yeah,
that
yeah.
happened in the anime. Well, the little
Yeah.
girl she saved and the night lady that was in charge of her,
Uh-huh.
in charge of protecting her, that's
Uh-huh.
Rudius's aunt. And because of all the shit that happened with Eris, she got that demotion and ended up there.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay.
Yeah, but later she'll come back in a very important arc, and yeah,
Probably help out with things.
she's
assuming.
definitely more important later on. That's all.
I bet. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
But what did you guys
It's weird
think
how they
of?
kinda- huh.
What did you guys think of the content?
Pretty good. I
Yeah,
like
no,
it.
this was fun.
The rice descriptions, like when I was reading it, part of my soul came out. I really love
Yeah, no, I can
rice.
tell. I definitely, I want to chime in, but like, this isn't Shem reading. This is
No,
him
this is
speaking.
me.
Like, how
I'll just
dare
be-
this chef?
This is no longer Rudius. This is straight up just Shim. The Asian
Listen.
came
Yeah,
out
no,
of him.
Rudy
It did.
Rudy
I
ripped
mean-
off the face. It was a mask. Shem appears underneath.
Like,
A
listen.
glint in his eye. A lightning bolt
I-
strikes behind him. He holds up
I
his
feel it.
fork.
Dude,
How dare
that's
you,
really
like
funny.
Gordon Ramsay.
What's really funny is yesterday on Anime Church last night,
Mhm.
we talked about a game that's coming out called Isekai, and it's
Uh-huh.
literally a bunch of
Oh.
okay, it's a bunch of different Isekai anime with the exception of one. I refuse. I absolutely fucking refuse to call Shangri-La Frontier an isekai. It's not another world.
doesn't make
He's
any
playing
sense,
a
yeah.
video game. But they have them in there as characters. But the first ones up are the first one is Mushoku Tensei. It's specifically season 2 because you're playing that version of Rudius.
Oh, so it's like an RPG system.
It's sort of, yeah. You collect
I
characters.
think it's
from
funny
that,
though.
And then
You said
the final
isekai,
one-
isekai, and I half expected you to say either fruit or no me, and I'm like, wait.
Like,
The
I'm gonna say
isekai,
this.
isekai no mi. Isekai no mi.
Oh,
I'm gonna say
Gomu
this about
Gomu no Mi.
Shangri-La because I actually have been watching that.
Oh yeah, I have.
If Shangri-La is an isekai, then Sao is somehow an isekai, which we
I-
all
no,
know
I thought
it's
that
not.
was like one of the first though.
It's not. That's the point, though.
Oh, well, I guess because it wasn't like reborn in another world.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
isekai
Could
literally
was not
means
involved.
another world.
Yeah, because you have to die to be
No.
an isekai.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
No, you just have to be
'Cause you have to
transported
be-
to another
Yeah,
world.
you just had to be taken to another
Oh.
world, like
It's-
literally.
So you don't have to
Literally,
die.
Because
isekai means
no
other
game, no
world.
life is an isekai.
Well, then again,
Mhm.
oh yeah, but then Overlord is technically an isekai too, but he's not like
Yeah.
he's not dead
Exactly.
though. So I guess you're right. So
That's
No,
because
well-
first off,
He got trapped there.
the place that he got transported to is not the game world.
Yeah.
oh,
we
and
have-
And he
Overlord, or are
does
you talking
say
about-
that.
No one recognizes where the fuck they are. They're learning
Yeah.
everything about this place.
Oh, okay, I got you. Okay.
Because they're sitting
Interesting.
there like, okay, so we got to prepare everything. And it's like, let me go see the world. And then they're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly. He's like,
I
shit.
Shit.
Yeah, I may talk a bit about that later because I've got some ideas for like how we want to handle Overlord season 1 specifically
Uh huh.
about that whole thing. It's like, okay, this isn't my world. This isn't the game world. This is a completely new world.
There are no facts online.
Yeah, no,
There's
hold
no
on,
game
hold on,
facts.
because it's just
There's
like,
no Google.
we just hear a deep inhale. Fuck! That's it. We just cut.
It
to
gets
that.
cut off.
That it gets
Perfectly
cut off
cut.
right to the intro. It's just like
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
I
would
was
be
gonna
funny.
say it better go to the intro.
the
It's like,
intro. The
Yeah.
intro
Ah.
ends. The intro ends, and we get
Yeah. That would be funny. I'd enjoy that.
for
It's
the
like,
entire
ah.
intro. That's the really funny thing. No, dude, that's the really funny thing for whatever the intro music that we decide to use in the background, very softly in the background, where
You
you
hear him, it's like,
you
"Ah."
hear the
That would be funny.
just, but it's not strong. It's not strong. Like you're hearing
It's-
it,
but it's just a tiny
hidden in the
bit, so you hear
background.
it.
And
That is
then it
very
comes
funny.
back to normal when we get to the ka.
That is
Okay.
very funny. I'd like to see how that is or how that's edited.
Had to get that out of my system. I was like, oh man, I can't wait. This
Yeah.
game
We
is
were
so-
debating something similar for the next episode. Actually, we have
Oh,
data
dude,
bridged.
Dude, it gets so freaking silly. Is Porcelain still on? By the way, I need to check if he's still streaming. He should be.
Hold on. Yeah, I
Does not appear so.
Oh.
Yeah,
nope.
Porcelain is done.
He's offline.
Yeah. So the joke that there was a joke that came up. We were talking on like his streamed shortly after Mel, which, by the way, guys, we got like the coolest shout out shortly after his stream with Mel.
Huh.
It was
Ooh.
wonderful. Yeah, he did a collab stream with Melody. They were just hanging out and chatting, and then eventually, because it's Melody, it has.
That
to
wasn't
turn-
today's, right?
No, it wasn't today's. That was
Okay.
that was like no, it wasn't yesterday. I think it was Saturday's
Yeah.
thing. Anyhow, they got to talking about like hentai games and just hentai anime and but
Nice.
also he has like old school like VHS
Mhm.
anime series, and he's like yeah, he pulls out Bubblegum Crisis 2049.
Well,
Nice.
And I'm like, holy fucking shit, Bubblegum Crisis? And he's like, yeah, I've never watched this. And I'm like Mel and I both were just like, are you fucking kidding me? But it was great. Anyway, so somebody came
He's
up
like,
with-
we're about to crucify this man.
apparently it's a running joke in his community.
mhm.
Apparently, that's really funny. But yeah, it's a running joke in his community that because he's a doll, they've always been like, you should totally be Albedo. And I'm like, at first I was like, no, but then I thought about it for a second. I was like, no, that'd actually be hilarious. Can you imagine
thought-
Joel's voice? Could you imagine Joel's voice coming out of Albedo, and he has to sit there and flirt with Bone Daddy the entire time?
I
So,
just imagine
the
your
question
your
is,
brain
are you going
is
to
like,
make him do a feminine voice or
No,
No, it'll be him.
absolutely
Oh, that'd
not.
be great.
No.
No, I could easily, I could see the
Hello,
oh
Bone
no,
Daddy.
and then
I'm
you
like-
take it a second, and it's like, oh yes.
That was just like, hey there, Bone Daddy. Why did
Why?
he make her like this?
Why did
Yeah.
did I install that voice mod?
No, because what it is each of the different people were created by different people in the guild.
Mhm.
So Albedo had one specific creator. I
Oh.
don't remember who it was,
Oh my god.
but he'd sit there
I'm
and be all
gonna-
like, "Why?"
Okay, Pandora's actor, I have a really dumb idea for it, and it's just a dumb idea. Nothing's been fleshed out. But when we get to
Oh.
Pandora's actor, Pandora's actor, like, I don't know why he made him look like he was some regal orange mustard colored Nazi.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so the joke is I want to make him one of them good old boy neo-Nazis.
Oh God.
I have friends who are neo-Nazis.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus.
But I want to make him one of them good old boys. He comes out like that, and he's like, oh my god, some phases need to die.
Hey there, Iron Sir. How you doing today?
no.
Oh, please, no, help me.
Wow, look like you brought the beauty queens with you. Just like, oh,
Do you already have him casted?
no.
Okay.
Oh
I
no.
need to pay for it.
My guy, the only character that has been cast is Ainz. That's it. We don't even have a script yet. No auditions have been done. You're asking
Well,
me
look,
if
I
we're
knew y'all had
casting yet?
eyes. I didn't know if y'all had ideas for anyone else yet.
No.
I personally think you would have Dee Dee be the dude who wears the suit.
Demiurge?
I think that's who it is.
The one with like the hair that goes up in like the spiky way or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
'Cause
guy
that just he
that
seems like
the
a
leader,
good Dee
but
Dee.
he's not.
Yeah.
Dude. No, you know what would be really really funny? Go the opposite switch. You get Joel instead of having Joel be Albedo,
Uh-huh.
Sheltier.
Ooh, that would be much better. Their aesthetic would work better with that too.
Mm.
Like the joke because the joke is that he's getting a new model made, and this time it's gonna be the female doll is gonna actually be kind of like doll-like and flat and not have a massive rack. And I'm like, well, ask and you shall receive.
It's funny you say that because this is gonna happen in this thing we're gonna do
Sheltier
here pretty
plus
soon.
follow. Lord Ides! Oh my god.
I've been
Before
on a couple of
anyone
his
asks-
streams too. I'm gonna have to
before-
be on more.
Before anyone asks, yes, we are going to cast the kids with kid voices.
Hmm.
Mhm.
They're not gonna suddenly have adult voices suddenly. Like, oh my goodness. I'm not looking forward. I'm not looking forward to half of these auditions because I know people have.
I mean,
I know
half of them are probably
actors.
going to be girls.
I know actors are gonna have. Well, no, I already know that certain actors already have expectations, and I'm like, my guy, we
Oh.
don't even know what we have yet. Please.
We're not doing that.
Well.
No.
Don't start
No, 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 no,
forming
no, no.
ideas in your head. They may because what we make may not live up to them. I'm like, the whole joke is that Overlord is the simulation that Shiro's in charge of, and that explains everything apparently. So I mean, if I need to, I can blame everything on Shiro. So that's just the beauty of it. Since we're sitting here talking about the Overlord thing, I might as well just go ahead and share the picture one more time. There we go. Alrighty. There it is. There it is. Now you can see us at the bottom as well,
Hi.
just talking. Hi guys.
Oh.
Hello.
Neat.
From the universe of Log Horizon Abridged, Overlord Abridged. I still want this to be the thumbnail. I think it's really, really cool.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Database, just living in. That would be the
We're
funniest
all about
fucking
that
thing.
bass.
No, no treble. But I think the funniest thing would be, because we never actually used any Log Horizon music as the intro for Log Horizon, we should use it for Overlord.
That would be funny.
That would work. That may make sense.
That would be funny.
I mean, it ties it in too.
Yeah.
Database, just living in the database. It makes so much sense when you realize that the whole thing is a simulation to begin with, so it's all in the
Exactly.
database. Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
I
No
like
trouble.
that. I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna have to pitch this.
Oh, would you do it?
No, I gave you your first one. I did the no treble.
Sure.
I went, but you don't get a second. Okay.
No, I did the reverse part of it.
Second breakfast.
All right.
Anyway, continue.
I get to pitch some things to Tony. I have to talk to him about some stuff, and that's probably going to be one of the things. Is like, hey, so I have an idea about the opening, and I know you probably have a song in mind, but here's the thing. Since this is connected to Log Horizon and we never used any Log Horizon music, wouldn't it be funny if we just did it? It's a one-time only thing that we do the opening for Overlord Abridged using database.
That would be funny.
It's so stupid. I love it.
I mean, that's why it's a good idea.
It's
'cause
ingenious.
stupid.
Oh,
No one would expect it.
What's
Ooh-wee.
going on, Sea Goat Games? What's going on? We are
Hello.
almost finished with volume 5 here. All right, so the good news is this next extra chapter is literally the end of the book. So we will be finishing that up shortly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what's coming up. We're working on that. Let's get back
Bless you.
to
Thank you.
let's get back to the book
Mhm.
and continue on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh,
I just wanted to hear what your thoughts were of like this whole section that did not. I'm glad you
I
were
just find
finally
it
here to
kinda
catch the stream
confusing.
too. Yeah, I all of the content that we've been reading today, is not in the anime. So
That's
this is
just, I don't know. I
all
feel like it's
skipped content.
pretty important. You know what I mean?
Well,
and,
I
like-
would say the stuff that happened with his aunt was important.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like,
literally-
that is important. Everything else
literally
is pretty much in the anime.
Yeah,
Like the Roxy
whole-
visits and stuff.
Yeah, the Roxy visits, but like all right, so the stuff with the aunt
Yeah.
was not in the anime, and then the thing at the restaurant where he just basically released the number 4 of the 7 great powers back into the
Yeah.
world.
That too.
Fucking Rudius, man. I
Yeah.
was looking forward to that because I wanted to know how they did the character. They skipped it and they just went
That is
straight to
very funny.
him saving the maiden and
There's
his
not even like
sister.
an OVA or anything
No,
out there for it.
no,
No. Oh,
nothing.
okay.
No.
Kind of surprised.
Uh,
And I feel like the aunt's like kind of an important character to just kind
she
of
is.
not.
This is
Yeah.
She
Zenith's
gets
sister.
one
This is
episode.
Zenith's
Yeah, so,
older
like,
sister.
Yeah, that's really
She
weird
gets
how
a
they just
bit
kind of
part. She
grazed
gets a
over it.
bit part in like
A
an
episode.
and the episode
Yeah, but-
happens to be the Eris side story episode. And the
Yeah,
funny
but the
part
thing is, here she knows that he's alive.
Unless you, well, here's the problem,
It's
right?
a big thing.
Mhm.
Here's the
Yeah.
problem with the anime. Unless you've read the light novel, you don't know who the fuck she is.
Yeah, and I didn't until we got here.
You're
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, she's the random night lady that was protecting the child that Eris saved. No,
Yeah.
that's actually Rudius's aunt. That's Zenith's older sister.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking important. Why would they just graze over that?
Oh man.
That's really weird.
Oh yeah.
Because I
by
guess
the
you don't
way-
see too much of her, I guess.
I guess.
Oh, that's
I don't
fine. We
know.
had to save some of the animation for him creeping out on people. Oh, that's fine. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I
That
would
was
have
more
loved.
important.
I really wanted to see him and Paul have this domestic dispute.
Well, I mean, that's still
Over-
important. That was still important.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
still.
yeah, it is, but like, oh yeah, I loved how much they gave that versus him actually
That's okay.
meeting his aunt for the first time.
Yeah, I feel like much of the animation went into animating what's her
Okay,
face's
so
boobs,
so
it's fine.
100%, I am with you guys on this. Like, I was really disappointed.
I'm just
Because at this point, all right,
fuck?
so understand something. By like the fourth episode, the fourth or fifth episode, like when they're still in the Fatoa region, okay? When they're still
Uh-huh.
in the Fatoa region, I started reading the light novels because I was
Uh-huh.
just really hooked and wanted to know. By the way, guys, speaking of light novels, that time I got reincarnated as a slime light novel volume 2 is available on Audible. The audiobook will be available in just a few hours because it comes out tomorrow. Just a heads up.
Cool.
It is
Mhm.
read. It is read by Brittany Karbowski, who is the dub voice actress for Rimuru. And here's the thing. I get it. Some people prefer to watch the sub versus the dub. You're like, dub. This is literally reading the light novel, and I swear to God, because we do that. We have read Slime. It's interesting to see her take on it, or to hear her take on it, because she actually is Rimuru, and secondly, it's really fun to hear her having to do both Great Sage and Rimuru together. Their
That is very funny.
conversations. That is very
Yeah.
funny. I've finished Volume 1. Volume 1 covers all the way up to Shizu passing. So the next thing that happens is the ogres are going to show up, and they're going to join, and then we'll have the Oni.
The orc
The Oni
things, yeah.
joining. Yeah.
Yep.
So
And the orcs, oh man, it's been forever since the
orcs and everything.
fucking-
Yeah, I really, for the nostalgia of it, I would love at some point if we just sat down as a group and just watched Slime. Just hung out,
Yeah.
watched Slime, did commentary. It is
Mm.
what it is. I'd love to do that. There's just no place outside of like Discord that we could get away with it. I don't think Twitch would allow us. But,
yeah,
I
probably
mean,
not.
No.
Be
I think we
interesting.
could get. No, I think we could get away with it on Twitch just so long as like we don't save the VOD.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are a bunch of reaction channels out there that react to anime specifically on Twitch, and I'm like, oh, okay, we could do that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just spitballing stuff. And no, Moon, I'm
That's okay.
sorry, I have not posted whatever list we were gonna do. So I'm just gonna give you one and like let you go and watch that, and then. Do you want a short series or a long series? How do you want to do this? Moon.
Yeah.
What?
He was asking if he wanted a long series or a short series for the next list that he's putting.
I think he missed all of the lead up to that.
Oh,
Kind of. I could have sworn y'all were reading, so I was just.
Oh.
No,
no.
we weren't reading,
We
we
were,
weren't reading yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have
Sorry.
the list put together for voting, and it's just too short of amount of time, so I'm just not gonna do it. I'm gonna give you a series to watch. Do you want a long series or a short series?
Do a short one.
Do a short one. All right.
Yeah.
I'll see what we got on the list, and I'll grab something for you.
Does it have to be something you haven't seen?
Yeah, it has to be something he hasn't seen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's the new one. Okay.
That's the
Yeah,
point
yeah,
of it.
Kaiju number
so
8. That's pretty small. If you haven't seen that.
I think it's
That
on
one's
there.
pretty good, though.
Let's see. So can't do Rurouni Kenshin. Well,
Arcane. Actually, no. You've probably seen Arcane
he's
already.
he's watched Arcane.
I've
Okay,
watched
Hori,
all of Arcane. Thank you.
Good. It's
okay,
very
I
good.
need to
I enjoy
edit
it.
out some of these because you have seen them. So Horimiya
Yep.
is one of those.
Are movies off the table?
Yeah.
Yeah,
they
because I've
kinda
already
are.
seen it.
No, I
I
meant
have
like-
now, anyways.
I meant like
Uh,
movies for the
Call of the
series
Night
in
is
general.
off the. Oh my
yeah,
god!
it's serious.
You know what?
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It's kind of short and it's one season. Jellyfish at Night or Bochi the Rock. Either one of those,
Ooh.
because they're both music oriented. I think Bochi the Rock, if I remember right, is on Crunchyroll, and Jellyfish at Night is High Dive.
I
Oh,
can do
I
either
have
one.
Because we've done like more romance aligned stuff or just those kind
Are
of.
they both rock oriented? I know Bochi the
They
Rock
are
is
both.
rock.
They are both music oriented. Yes.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking about the genre.
It's like slice of life.
Well.
No, music genre.
Oh, well, I think Bocchi the
Technically,
Rock's more
Jellyfish
rock
at Night.
oriented, right?
Technically, Jellyfish at Night. I don't think it's necessarily rock. It's J-pop stuff, kind of.
Gotcha.
Jellyfish at Night kind of revolves a little bit around an artist, that because she's the main character. The musician is someone that is connected to the main character in a way.
Mm.
Anyhow, Bochi the Rock is an exercise in
Memes.
no.
Are you sure? There's plenty of memes of it. I've
There
seen
are
way
Bochi
more memes.
Bochi the Rock
than
is
memes.
an exercise like Comey from Comey Can't Communicate has nothing on Bochi. Bochi is afraid of everything.
Yeah.
Cool.
But it's just fucking great. Like both of those are really good series that are absolutely worth watching. But yeah, Jellyfish at Night is kind of a little more serious, whereas Bochi is more comedic. They're
How
kind
short
of-
is short anime in terms
Let's
of these
do
lists?
Bochi.
But I think they're both like one season, like one and done.
Oh, okay.
At
that's
the
cool.
moment, people are demanding more Bochi the Rock.
So let's do Bochi.
Okay. Yeah. So Wednesday you'll be watching Bochi. Yeah. There we go. You're watching Bochi. I'm going to put the list together tomorrow.
Speaking of
for
music,
the
like
next week.
I'm gonna try to tomorrow. I'm gonna try to record some of the reviews and stuff that I've been needing to do for quite some time.
I'm not gonna
And
hold
when
my
I
breath.
do Call of the Night, oh, I went on such a deep dive for the music of that show. I'm gonna be talking about more music than I am
Did
the
I
show.
not tell you? Did I not tell you that Call of the Night? You're like, what is Call of the Night? And I go, it's a vibe.
The music is
not-
more than a
is it
vibe,
so
though.
true?
The
It is
show
a
itself is a
fucking
vibe, yeah,
vibe.
but the music was just amazing.
It is such a vibe, and it's like okay, you need to hear Gigic do his review of Call of the Night because he
Probably.
literally says he's like, if ever there was a show that felt like nighttime vibes, it's this show, and I'm like, yeah, no, I agree. It's pretty dope.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's the one with the cute fangirl. Interesting.
lot of
I've seen her, but I didn't know where she came
It
from.
is getting a season 2, just so you know, Moon Moon.
Yes, and I'm very excited, and I really hope Creepy Nuts does all of the music for it again.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the other thing, Moon Moon. Here is the other thing.
Mm.
You need to watch Zenshu. I have watched the first episode. It's fucking hilarious. I love it. Like
Yeah.
the one about the animator who like she's like a director and all that stuff and blah 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 blah.
That's
and
the
then,
one of the ones we're gonna be reviewing, isn't it?
yeah.
Okay.
2
Mm.
episodes are out right now. It is a Sunday show. That's the only downside.
Okay.
Yeah. So anime director dies and ends up in like her favorite anime from when she was a kid, and is trying to save the hero before he
Hmm.
gets killed.
Oh,
Yeah. And she will save the world with the power of her art. It's so fucking fun. I love it.
Nice.
Yeah, I was like, okay, Zenshu, the animator one. And then I'm like, oh, it's an isekai. Oh, I'm an isekai whore, so it like really scratched that crack fiend itch I have for isekai. So yeah, but yeah, this is Mappa doing quote unquote an isekai. I think it's Mappa. I, I'm pretty sure it's it's the daily life. It is literally what Mappa employees wish would happen. They die and just be in another world and no longer have to work for fucking corporate assholes. But
Oh,
yeah,
so sort of like the isekai version of Zom 100.
uh,
Hmm.
no, that's just a joke that I'm making. But I fucking love Zom 100, man. That the opening for
I
that was
watched
so
that.
good.
I heard it was good.
The end wasn't as strong as the opening, but like you could tell they were having fun. The animation team was just having a ball. All right, sorry. Go ahead and continue. I apologize for the
oh no,
long
it's okay. I
interruption.
was just letting you guys go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let him cook. Yeah.
Yeah, just letting you cook. It's fine. It's all good.
All
We're
right.
having fun here. Fun cooking.
I was
Fun
actually
cooking.
curious because
But Moon, I didn't hear much from you. What did you think of the content that we've gone through so far in Mushoku Tensei today? That most of it was not in the anime.
I kind of wish they had animated it because I feel like it's
Mhm.
gonna come up later.
I feel so fucking justified. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's not
'Cause I
just
was
your
thinking
opinion.
the
Everyone
exact
kind of
same
feels
thing.
it.
Here's the thing. I will tell you that the sister and the little girl are very, very important later. Like super later. But
Hmm.
they are massively important. Like several arcs down the road, very important. And that is the moment where one of the best characters in this whole fucking series takes a turn. And then you suddenly are going to start hating him.
Hmm.
You're going to hate this character. Anyhow.
Is it the man god?
No.
Because I feel like it's gonna be the man god.
Probably.
You're already
Yep.
all right. You're already suspicious of the man god. He's not one of the
I've
best
been
characters.
suspicious of the man
I
god.
said
As
one of
soon
the,
as he appeared on screen.
the man
Yeah,
god.
like,
The man
even his
god is not.
voice.
All right, I just got to strike that down. The man god is not one of the best characters in this series.
Okay, I didn't hear that part. I just heard characters you're gonna hate, and I'm like,
No,
that sounds like
it's
the
a
man
character.
god.
It's a character that right now, with the information that you have from 2 seasons of the anime and what we read of the light novel so far, you really like this character. You have been introduced to them, and you do like this character. And then once that arc hits, and there's like, I think it's at the end of the arc. It could be at the end of the arc or just partway through the arc, but information is gonna get revealed, and you're suddenly gonna hate that character.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The amount of times that I have listened to that character being read or seen them on screen and tried desperately to just keep my mouth shut about how much that character infuriates me, and I just want to reach into my screen and just grab them by their little traitorous neck, you know,
Oh, I think I might know who it is.
or
Maybe.
you may not.
I'm not gonna say anything.
You
But-
may, you may not.
Yeah.
I am using they them pronouns. I am being as
Are you
vague
talking
as
about
possible.
Eisen? You're talking about Eisen, aren't you?
Eisen
It's a joke.
from
It's a Bleach
Bleach.
joke.
I
Yeah.
was saying, Eisen.
I thought
that
I
filthy
zoomed
fucking
gold for
traitor.
a second.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen season
Was a
3
joke.
of I haven't seen season 3 of Thousand Year Blood War yet. I can't tell you.
I
if it was Eisen.
haven't either.
Yeah,
It was just an Eisen joke because I was like, oh yeah, this guy. There was no way he could betray them. Fucking
Oh, no,
bastard.
shock
Anyway.
if he betrayed them. What are the
Yeah.
odds? Where's
Yeah,
my
I
did.
mean, it
bet
was a
money?
little shocking,
No,
but it was like, eh.
no, he didn't.
I'm
He
shocked.
didn't.
Shocked.
He didn't betray them.
Hmm.
The betrayal was when you found out he wasn't like from the beginning. He didn't give a fuck about them at all.
Yeah, that is true.
Then he is
He
doubly
didn't even,
wretched, for he
yeah.
has
No,
been living a
he
lie.
never
Well, he can't
betrayed.
be a traitor if he didn't actually,
Yeah,
he was just working for himself the whole time.
yeah, literally, he did not give a fuck about any. Like, it's so funny how Kisuke took the blame for all of Aizen's shit.
Hmm.
Fuck Aizen. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's continue
Uh,
on.
I don't know who this Gustav character is, but I'll
Okay,
figure it out.
all right.
I guess I'll make up some sort of name's Gustav. I'm a humble information broker living in the city of Ars, capital of the kingdom of Asura. When I say humble, that doesn't mean I've got a low opinion of myself. It's fair to say I'm damn good at what I do, in fact. For the right price, I can find out anything you want to know about anything that took place inside Asura's borders. One day not too long ago, I happened to catch wind of a certain rumor. It went something like this. The second Princess Ariel Asura had been murdered by unknown assailants while en route to enroll at the Renoa University of Magic. Clever boy that I am, I quickly realized that this bit of news was being deliberately spread around the city by Prince Scrabble, Ariel's most bitter
Rabble.
rival. Grabble? Oh, sorry. Prince Grabble, Ariel's most bitter rival. About a month earlier, Ariel had left Ars ostensibly to go study abroad. Her departure had been a quiet one. Given her popularity with the citizens of the capital, any attempt at a grand farewell parade might have totally gotten totally out of hand. This supposedly was why she'd slipped out of the city in secret. Her retinue, including both guards and attendants, numbered only 17. This was a very small escort for a royal princess. But since it included both the infamous playboy Luke Notos Greyrat and the highly conspicuous bodyguard known as Silent Fitz, my information network quickly brought me news of their departure. By that point, of course, rumors were already proliferating that Ariel had been sent into exile after losing a power struggle in the royal court. And now, a few short weeks later, we had this new piece of hearsay making the rounds. If the princess truly had been assassinated, the word had gotten around very quickly. It would be one thing if there was some witness who could name the perpetrators, but instead we had unknown assailants and an anonymous source. The fact that such a flimsy rumor was spreading around town so quickly seemed proof enough that it was being spread deliberately. As a professional purveyor of accurate information, I was tempted to dig around and uncover the truth. However, the last thing I wanted was to catch the attention of whichever scheming noble was responsible for this situation. So I decided to keep myself in the dark on this one. However, a little while after the rumor of Ariel's death had begun to spread, a certain individual paid me a visit. This man knew of me and my reputation as a first rate information broker, and I recognized him as a retainer of Paimon Notos Greyrat, leader of Princess Ariel's faction among the nobility. His main role was to provide his lord with up to date intelligence, of course, and he came to see me in disguise and gave a false name, but he might as well have not bothered. He seemed to regard me as a suspicious character at first, and spoke to me in a pretty condescending way. When I finally told him I knew exactly who he was, though, he bowed his head to me and presented me with a job offer. Specifically, he wanted me to find out if Princess Ariel was really dead. That came as one hell of a surprise, honestly. I would have never guessed that Ariel's own allies had lost all contact with her faction and didn't even know she was safe. Even a clever boy like me can get a bit bamboozled now and then. I'd initially chosen to steer clear of this whole mess, but I decided to take the job anyway. Why, you may ask? Well, because the money was damn good, of course. It started off by retracing Princess Ariel's steps. After leaving the capital, her party had traveled straight north in the direction of Renoa. I considered the possibility that she'd fled in a totally different direction after spreading lies about enrolling at the University of Magic, but that didn't seem to be the case. As I followed Ariel's trail and gathered information, it soon became clear that a group of pursuers had been hounding her. Some people reported seeing suspicious black clad characters right around this time the princess party was passing through their town, and Ariel seemed to have lost an escort or two by the time she reached the next town along her route. This wasn't unexpected, though. The trip had gone smoothly. Her allies back home wouldn't have been frantically looking to get word of her safety. Despite losing one guard after another, Ariel would nonetheless push steadily northward. With her retinue reduced to 10, she finally reduced the checkpoint at the northern border. This was a solid, well guarded facility that pressed up against a large forest just south of the valley known as the Red Worm's upper jaw. Here, I was able to obtain a useful bit of eyewitness testimony from a man who remembered Ariel's arrival very clearly. Border Control Officer Smiley Gatlin's statement. I was in a lousy mood that day. Not that it was any different from any other day, in that respect. After all, at the time I felt my job was totally beneath me. Hmm? What's my job exactly, you ask? Well, it's mostly tedious, busy work. I check the passes of travelers seeking to leave a Syrian territory. Sometimes I might search them or their belongings in for contraband. But of course, the vast majority of those passing through this checkpoint are either adventurers, mercenaries, or merchants who want to do business up north for some strange reason. Most of the merchants have valid passes, and the adventurers are permitted to simply use their guild cards instead. Mercenary bands and first time travelers need to go through a formal inspection process before their passes can be issued. That's not my job. I simply direct them to a different officer. And unless you're some sort of notorious criminal or something, you usually get your documents soon enough. We're not too strict about these things on this side of the checkpoint. Far more people want to enter Asura than leave it, after all. Technically, I'm also responsible for stopping criminals who try to cross the border using falsified documents, but the rough stuff isn't my department either. The soldiers deal with problems of that nature. As I said before, however, it typically isn't very hard to get a pass unless you're a major criminal. People of that ilk are typically on the wanted list. Rather than risk visiting a checkpoint, they usually turn to smugglers to get them across the border. And of course, hunting down and eradicating smuggler rings isn't in my job description either. I found my work painfully dull and completely unrewarding. No matter how hard I tried, I knew I would never earn any recognition here. The thought of growing old in this place made me utterly miserable. It didn't help that I wasn't on the friendliest terms with the soldiers who were essentially my coworkers. I regarded them as imbeciles, and they thought of me as a pathetic pansy with an oversized ego. The fact that our chain of commands were completely separate only made things worse. I was a man who graduated from a prestigious aristocratic academy in the capital. My talents were clearly being wasted in this backwater, or so I sincerely believed at the time. Princess Ariel's party arrived at almost noon, as I recall. At first, all I saw was a luxurious two-seater carriage accompanied by 7 guards on foot. Counting the driver up front and the 2 potential passengers inside, it seemed to be a group of 10 in total. My initial thought was that an aristocrat of was engaging. Excuse me. My initial thought was that an aristocrat was engaging in some sort of sightseeing expedition. However, this was the border of the kingdom. Beyond this checkpoint lay only the dangerous foreign lands known as the Northern Territories, plagued by snows and monsters. Nobles did sometimes pass through on their way to far off places, but they would always bring at least 3 carriages and 20 guards or more. Perhaps you could make do with less if you hired an elite band of adventurers, but this party didn't strike me as a group of battle hardened warriors. All of them were dressed for the road, but some were clearly not accustomed to long journeys, and others looked rather scrawny for bodyguards. Perhaps it wasn't a sightseeing trip then. Was it possible they had some business at the checkpoint itself? You could never discount the possibility of an incognito inspection from some high ranked lord. For time being, I decided to proceed as usual. May I see your pass, please? Here you are. The response to my inquiry came from a young man standing at the very head of the group. He was remarkably handsome, even in my eyes, but there were clear signs of exhaustion on his face. In particular, the dark circles under his eyes stood out. It was at this moment that I first sensed there might be something odd going on here. There were no issues with the pass itself. It was a genuine document issued by the Kingdom of Sira, stamped with a valid Notos family mark. Everything was perfectly in order. I would normally have waved them through the gate without a second thought, but something about the handsome young man's face made me hesitate. I could have sworn I'd seen it somewhere before. In hindsight, this was because he was Luke Notos Greyrat, the infamous or the famous guardian knight of Princess Ariel. I suppose I couldn't place him because I had never seen him at such close range before. In any case, I made it a professional habit to detain anyone who seemed vaguely familiar to me. Most of the faces I'd recently committed to memory came from depictions of wanted criminals, after all. My apologies, but may I take a look at the inside of your or sorry. My apologies, but may I take a look at the inside of your carriage? At my words, a number of soldiers who had been standing around the checkpoint moved to block off the exits. We weren't on the friendliest of terms, true, but they always performed their duties at times like these. Several of the guards around the carriage grew visibly tense at this development. I stiffened slightly myself, wondering if I really was dealing with some gang of bandits. The handsome young man shook his head slowly. Due to certain extraordinary circumstances, the passenger within must have complete privacy. There was no way that was going to fly, of course. When I repeated my demand in somewhat harsher terms, the young man's face contorted into a bitter grimace. A number of his companions, the ones who seemed more accustomed to travel specifically, also glared at me and put their hands on the swords they carried. Their movements weren't as quick as those of the master warriors, but I had the feeling they experienced their fair share of combat. In particular, the white haired, short statured boy who was stood right behind the handsome leader was actually quite intimidating. The only weapon he carried was a small rod of the sort of the sort beginners use to practice basic magic, but something about the way he held himself suggested that he was a truly lethal fighter with the wariness of a seasoned veteran. I suppose he must have been that Silent Fitz character. I don't think I've ever been so frightened of a boy less than half my age. My experience told me that a group like this could cause significant harm to our garrison. Should I order the soldiers to seize them now, or is there some other option? As I had hesitated, someone spoke from within the carriage. Stop this, Luke. It was a voice like gold. The sound of it turned my brain to mush. There was something almost hypnotic about it, I believe. In that moment, I truly wanted to listen to it forever. It was a voice I'd heard once before, a voice I recognized. I heard it 10 years earlier at the Academy's graduation ceremony in the capital, as a certain personage offered a speech of congratulations to our valedictorian. Brief as that address had been, I'd never forgotten it. Never. Back then, I think nearly every single graduate in that room had cursed themselves for not having studied harder. These men are simply being diligent in their duties. When that door of the carriage opened, I felt a great shiver run down my spine. I couldn't have forgotten her if I tried. I remembered clearly even now the young princess who had attended our graduation ceremony as an honored guest. I remember the joy I'd felt at the prospect of serving her in this kingdom. I remembered how privileged I felt to be joining this proud country's ranks. I'll remember her until the day I die. But my apologies, your highness. Even as a child, that golden-haired princess had been dazzlingly beautiful, and now she stood before me far lovelier than before. I went down on one knee instantly, without conscious thought. There was no doubt about it, however, or whatsoever. This was the second princess of the kingdom of Asura, Ariel Anamwa Asura, the most beloved member of the royal family, who regularly appeared at events around the capital and advocated for its citizens. Many of the soldiers stationed here had likely at least caught a glimpse of her from a distance at some point in the past. But this was surely the first time any of us had seen her at such close range. There's no need for that. As I recall, there's a law that no one serving at a border post ever has to kneel in the course of their ordinary duties. With those words, the princess stepped out of her carriage. Nearly all of the soldiers around us had followed my example and gone down on one knee. But as Princess Ariel pointed out, barring some sort of special circumstances, no one on duty here was ever expected to kneel. Don't exactly know why, but it's been that way for many, many years. Since starting at this place, I've never kneeled to anyone, no matter what their rank. This was also the first time I'd seen any of the soldiers do so, and no one had ever rebuked or challenged us on that. But of course, the fact that it wasn't required didn't mean it was forbidden. We stayed as we were and bowed our heads towards Ariel. It simply felt like what we ought to do. Princess Ariel, I feel it isn't my duty to ask. Why have you come to a border crossing such as this with such small retinue? You weren't told anything in advance. I knew there had to be something strange going on here, of course. When I searched my memory based on what Ariel said, an event from about a month before this flashed through my mind. The individual in overall command of this checkpoint was not myself, of course, nor was it my direct superior, the senior border control officer. It was a noble who had also served as the mayor of a nearby town, the closest place where travelers could find lodgings. This man could go months without showing his face here, but he'd ride over to give us a few orders when he felt the need. On his last visit, he told us, within the next few months, a certain very noble personage may pay us a visit here. Based on the phrase noble personage, I'd imagine this would involve dozens of carriages surrounded by swarms of attendants, so I hadn't even remembered the incidents until I actually saw the princess. I I was told that a very young noble personage might be coming, yes. And was that all you were told? Her question brought my memory of that moment into clearer focus. The man had, in fact, continued. This personage will most likely be seeking to cross the border and flee to the north. However, you mustn't allow this. Find a reason to hold their party back and keep them waiting in town for several days. I've been ordered not to let her through, to stop her here. In other words, to ensure her death. This wasn't the first time we received an order of this sort. It was relatively common for nobles who had blundered badly in the capital to try and flee north, and in such cases the commander would give us similar directions. Sometimes we were told to let them through and they'd make it safely to the north, but sometimes we were told to delay them for a while, and they would inevitably go missing in the forest just past the border. I was born and raised in the capital, but I'm a commoner by birth. I know precious little about the royal court and its factions. Of course, I'm aware that the nobility as a whole is constantly embroiled in vicious struggles for power. I could tell that my superior wasn't dooming certain fugitives in exchange for money, much less at random. Those who lived, no doubt, belonged to this faction of the aristocracy, while those who died were loyal to his enemies. This lovely young princess had lost a fight against the allies of my supervisor and was now on the run. That seemed the most likely possibility by far. What's the matter? Answer me. For a moment, I was lost in thought. It would be easy enough to smile brightly and reply, No, I was simply told to treat you with the utmost courtesy. However, there appeared to be some slight irregularities with your pass. It might take a little time to sort this out, so could you please come back tomorrow? That was how I'd always done this in the past. Finding some minor detail to justify delaying her wouldn't pose me any difficulty. But at the same time, I wondered if that was what I ought to do. What was the purpose of the work I did here at this dull border posting? I certainly wasn't serving my country in any appreciable way. The very idea was preposterous. Not once in all the time I'd spent on the job had such a thought even crossed my mind. And yet, for all my cynicism, there had been one solitary moment in my life when I'd felt some genuine patriotic zeal. As I told you earlier, that was at my graduation ceremony, when I first laid eyes on Princess Ariel. On that day, I'd truly thought of myself as one small part of a proud, great country. The thought of serving it and her had brought me joy. Now I recalled those feelings, I had to ask myself, was I really willing to step back and leave this young princess to her fate? The answer was immediately indecisive. I felt no need to hesitate. I was told to stop that noble personage here and ensure they spent several days waiting in a nearby town. All the princess's guards reacted visibly to these words, but Ariel herself remained totally calm and unperturbed. I see. What do you intend to do then? Uh, Nothing in particular. You're not going to carry out your orders. No matter how strange they may be, ignoring them could get your head chopped off. I couldn't help but chuckle softly at the bluntness of her words. My orders, miss. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I've never heard any very noble personage heading to a foreign country with a single shabby horse cart and fewer than 10 guards. Oh. At the moment, I'm just dealing with a rather pompous young lady whose name I don't even know. Would you mind telling me who you are, incidentally? Princess Ariel laughed in what sounded like genuine amusement. Perhaps she was enjoying this farce nearly as much as I was. I am Ariel Canalusa, the only child of a low-rank noble, as it happens. Very well then, Miss Canalusa. What brings you to the north? I'm traveling to Renua to enroll in the University of Magic. Is that so? Well, I see no issues with your pass, so please move on through. Safe travels to you. Thank you. With a small, graceful, and unmistakably royal bow, Princess Ariel stepped back into her carriage. The driver got the horses moving immediately, and her guards hurried forward alongside, looking somewhat nonplussed. Now then, who's next in line? As these words left my mouth, I realized that a number of eyes were now fixed on me. In fact, virtually every soldier in the area was looking my way. I found myself wondering if I had been too hasty about this. All these men were faithful to their duties. They weren't like me. They were dim-witted fighters who had been trained in the capital to obey orders absolutely, without so much as a second thought. While they were technically under my command at this checkpoint, at the end of the day, I belonged to a completely different department. It was perfectly possible that their own superiors had directly ordered them not to let Ariel pass through. In that case, my disobedience would have consequences for them as well. Since Princess Ariel was such a high priority target, it wouldn't be at all surprising if their officers had sent word to the rank and file that she might be coming. I steeled myself as best I could. It seemed plausible that these men would beat me black and blue before exposing what I had done. It had been my unilateral decision to let the girl through after all. As I bit my lip, one of the men slowly approached me. This was the captain of all the soldiers of the courtyard. His shoulders were, by the way, roughly 3 times broader than mine. He lifted his hand, wide and heavy as a frying pan, and then smacked it against my back. I staggered forward, but much to my surprise, there was barely any pain at all. Nice work, buddy. The moment their captain spoke these words, the other soldiers lifted their fists in the air and roared with approval. A few of them actually cheered for me. While I only learned this later, practically all the soldiers working at this checkpoint are loyal fans of Princess Ariel. It seems she made a habit of showing up at military graduation ceremonies as well. Most of them had only heard her say a brief few words before this, but I'm hardly any different in that respect. I couldn't understand exactly how they felt, or I could understand exactly how they felt. Permission to speak freely, Officer Gatlin? We've all been losing our damn minds from frustration since they dumped us out here, but you just put us in a good mood for the first time in ages. Ain't that right, boys? Oh, yeah. Come to the tavern in town tonight. All right, I'm buying. As the captain thumped me on the back again, I felt a very peculiar feeling wash over me. Up to a few minutes ago, I'd been thinking of these people as different from me on some fundamental level, you know. I'd convinced myself they were a pack of crude, unschooled thugs, not loyal subjects of the royal family. But that wasn't the case at all. Just like me, they've been dumped out here in the middle of nowhere and directed to obey some miserable bastard. Just like me, they've been chafing at their reins. And after I realized this, strangely enough, I actually started to feel some pride in my work. Ever since that day, I've been on good terms with the soldiers here, and my job has brought me actual pleasure. It's all thanks to Princess Ariel, without a doubt. Simply by gracing this checkpoint with her presence, she made it a far happier place. After this, Prince Officer Gatlin went on a long monologue about the depths of his adoration for Princess Ariel, which I've opted to omit. Now then, as much as I enjoyed hearing Prince Officer Gatlin praise Princess Ariel to the high heavens, it wasn't the exact reason I was talking to him. Did a group of black clad men pass through this checkpoint in pursuit of her? At this question, the man's expression took a sudden turn for the gloomy. They weren't exactly in pursuit of her, I believe. What do you mean? A group of suspicious characters passed through the checkpoint maybe 3 days before Princess Ariel arrived. I wasn't on duty at the time and only learned about them later. Oh, this was interesting. If Prince Ariel's enemies had crossed the border first, they were likely waiting to ambush her as she left the country. Had I known, I could at least have warned her, but at this point, I can only pray for her safety. I see. Thank you very much. Officer Gatlin clearly hadn't heard the rumor that the princess was already dead. It did seem like that story had originated within the capital. However, this alone wasn't sufficient to tell me if Ariel was alive or dead. I chose to keep gathering information. What I had at the moment fell short of what I needed to complete this job. I started with the other officers at the checkpoint and tried a few of the soldiers as well. Then I headed over to the nearby town to try to find people who looked like they crossed the border regularly. I needed to know what happened to Ariel on the other side of that wall. She made it through the forest in one piece, or had she died there as rumors claimed? Ran all around town looking for someone who could give me the answer, and eventually found myself to a certain young merchant with a story to tell. That day, I was busy bringing my wares south to Asura just like always. I'd come down through the red worm's upper jaw and was following the single road that runs through the worm's whiskers. Huh? Oh, right, yeah. That's what everyone around here calls the forest up north. I don't know who came up with it, though. Oh, yeah, sorry, the chapter is called Bruno the Merchant's Statement. So, anyway, I was bringing down a load of. Can't really remember what it was. Probably some pelts you could only get up there in the northern territories, I guess. What? No, it was just me. Guards? Do I look like I've got the money to hire guards? I'm pretty decent in a fight myself, you know. Spent some time training in the Sword Sanctum once upon a time, as it happens. What were we talking about again? Oh, right. I was coming down through the Worm's Whiskers. It was just me and my buddy Robinson. Hmm? You want to know where he is? Out in the stables. They don't serve donkeys in here, I'm afraid. Anyway, the two of us were making decent time. I was in a good mood, as I recall. Business was going smoothly, and I'd almost saved enough dosh to buy myself a cart. Even those little ones for donkeys let you move a lot more stuff at once, you know? That was a real exciting prospect. But then I heard the sound of clashing metal coming from somewhere up ahead. My mood sank real fast. It wasn't just the sound, I could smell something fishy in the air. Been making my living as a solo merchant for a while, right? I got damn good nose for danger by now. It's always best to steer well clear of trouble, of course, but like I said, there's only one path through the whiskers. I couldn't just turn back. I decided to head out into the woods with Robinson and slip by along the side of the road. I knew it would be smarter to just leave the donkey behind, but Robinson's my beloved business partner, right? Couldn't risk him getting eaten by a monster or something. So, anyway, me and him started moving along through the forest, making sure we stayed hidden. The sound of clashing metal got louder as we went, and I could make out people shouting too. Robinson was a little freaked out, but he had me with him, so he stayed nice and quiet. The two of us had been through thick and thin together, you know? What's that? Enough about the donkey and just tell me what you saw. Man, you're one impatient guy, but sure, whatever. When I peeked out of the scene from behind the undergrowth, the first thing I noticed was a carriage. It wasn't that big, as carriages go, probably carried 3 people if you counted the driver out front. Most ones that size only take one horse, but there were two hitched to this one, so it's probably a custom built number. Hmm? Oh, you wonder why I'm so knowledgeable about this stuff? Well, I've been trying for a decade for what cart to buy for my donkey, right? The carriage dealer gave me the rundown of this whole line, and okay, all right. You don't have to glare at me like that, man. Get back on topic. Anyway, I realized immediately that this carriage had been attacked. I mean, It was lying on its side in the dirt, and some guys who looked like guards were fighting a bunch of other guys in black clothes. The time I got there, it was 7 of the boys in black facing off against 4 guards. 2 guards, or maybe servants, were already lying on the ground. Oh, and there were also 4 girls huddled up together by the carriage, trembling something fierce. They were probably the targets of the attack. The black clothes guys had the numbers, but it didn't look like they were at a huge disadvantage or a huge advantage or anything. Way more of them were lying in the dirt after all. There must have been a dozen of them down already. I was kind of flabbergasted, actually. Wondered what kind of morons had sent a bunch of clumsy amateurs to do a job like this. I had the wrong idea, though. When I looked a little more carefully, I realized the guys in black weren't bad at all. If anything, they were more skilled than the guards. In a clean one-on-one sword fight, those guys would have won every single time. Huh? You you want to know how I could tell? Try paying more attention. Like I said, I'm a better swordsman than you might think. When I see someone fighting, I can tell how strong they are. Anyway, this all struck me as awful strange, so I ended up stopping to watch the battle. After a few seconds, I realized that this one guy on the guard's side was seriously slick. This was a kid with white hair, right? Pretty scrawny, and his only weapon was a beginner's magic rod. But for some reason, he was on a totally different level than the rest. Back in the Sword Sanctum, I saw a few guys who were on their way to becoming Sword Saints or Kings. Let me tell you, felt like time moved 10 times slower for them. They weren't just quick on their feet. They could make snap judgments in the blink of an eye. This kid wasn't quite that good, but I could tell right away that his battlefield awareness was absolutely top class. Whenever one of his buddies was in danger, he'd send a spell flying at the perfect moment and save their butt. The guy was mostly just using beginner tier spells, too. I think he must have been carefully preserving his mana. He was putting in some seriously godly work, man. Your average magician couldn't have pulled this off in a million years. You have to be very well trained in a specific way to manage anything of the sort. From where I was, I couldn't hear him doing any chanting either. I think it's possible he was silent spellcasting. Using magic without the incantations. Never seen it before myself, but I guess there are people out there who can pull it off. Anyway, it was impressive stuff. But I think the guys in black had adapted to his style after seeing him mow down half their team. And on top of that, it looked as if the guards were pretty damn bushed. The fight was even more than it seemed at first glance, in other words. Felt like it was close enough that if a single man or on either side went down, that would pretty much decide things. Overall, though, I guess the guys in black were a bit more coordinated. All of a sudden, they changed up their whole strategy. I'm guessing they must have signaled to each other beforehand, but I sure didn't notice. Up till that point, they've been going with a straightforward 2-on-1 approach against the 3 frontline guards, with their extra man acting as a roaming wild card. Now all 7 of them peeled off and made a beeline for the white-haired kid. The 3 swordsmen couldn't react in time, but the kid could. Somehow keeping his focus, he instantly set off a wide-range spell that took out 2 of them at once. At that point, the guys in black scattered. 2 of them kept heading for the white-haired boy. The other 3 rushed right at the girls over by the carriage. They'd found their opportunity. They needed to break through the guard's line. White-haired mage still managed to react. Without even looking at the 2 assassins bearing down on him, he whipped his wand over the ones going for the women. Unbelievable, right? Normally, you'd be more worried about the guys about to kill you. In the next instant, a whole bunch of things happened at once. First, the white haired kid let off a nasty spell that killed off 2 of the assassins charging at the girls. Second, 2 of the guards rushed in to intercept the 2 guys in black who were coming for the kid. All 4 of them went down together. And finally, the last of the men in black pulled one of the frozen, trembling girls from the group and cut her pretty little head off. Just a moment too late, the last of the swordsmen stabbed him from behind, proudly holding up the severed head of his victim. The man died with a look of satisfaction on his face. I'm guessing that must have been the young lady who the guards had been fighting so hard to protect. The 5 survivors just stood there in total silence, totally stunned. Understandable, right? I mean, they lost most of their pals and the girl they were trying to defend. Now that the show was over, I quietly moved along through the woods. There was a chance the smell of blood might draw some monsters to the area, for one thing. I didn't really want to deal with them asking me for help. Robinson and I made ourselves scarce in no time. That was all there was to Bruno's story. In combination with what I learned from Officer Gatlin, it seemed Princess Ariel had passed safely through the checkpoint, only to be ambushed in the woods just north of it, where the assassins took her life during a vicious battle. The rumors were true, after all, just as the nobles of her factions had feared. Ariel was dead. Still, there were a few mysteries remaining. For example, what had become of the survivors? From what Bruno told me, 5 members of the party had made it through that fight. The status of Luke Notus Greyrat was unclear. At the very least, Silent Fitz was still alive. That guy really stood out in a crowd. I hadn't heard a single word about him heading back to the capital. There was a chance he'd taken some roundabout route instead of the one I followed here. That would still have entailed crossing back over the border first. Nobody at the checkpoint had mentioned him returning, so I think he'd kept on moving north instead. That didn't strike me as too strange, though. It takes some guts to slink back home in disgrace after letting Princess Ariel get killed. Maybe he decided it was smarter to flee to the northern territories instead. Wouldn't have been too hard to find out if that was what happened if I crossed the border and headed up there for a while, of course. But sadly, my area of expertise is anything that takes place inside Asura's borders. I don't deal with international affairs. Besides, my job here was to determine the whereabouts of second Princess Ariel and Amoy Asura. Her guards were outside the scope of that assignment, so I decided to head back to the royal capital. I'm a city boy at heart, you know. I'm never too comfortable out in the sticks. Still, I did manage to buy some rare booze from the Northern Territories off my new buddy Bruno. Once his job was all wrapped up, I was going to have myself a little party. You should have seen the look on the face of Pilemon's men when I reported my findings. I felt kind of good seeing a man who dealt in information way above my pay grade go white as a ghost over a few facts I'd scraped together. Anyway, the case was fully closed, or officially closed, and I got my pay in full. I decided to have myself a nice celebratory dinner to savor my pile of cash, the booze I'd brought from Bruno, and the memory of my client's face. I headed over to my favorite bar, ordered some light food, and sat down to relax in my usual spot. I had a real good view of the whole place from here. It's basically my personal table at this point. When I focused carefully, I could hear every conversation taking place in here at once. This was one of my more useful of many skills. If you want to make it as a top class information broker, you can't let any tidbit of news slip past you. So, I hear there was a rumor going around that Princess Ariel got killed up north, huh? Yeah, it's a real shame. I was a big fan. Come on, don't tell me you believe that crap. I mean, it's not like I want to, but someone was talking about the topic of the hour, so I glanced in that direction. A sturdy looking guy was drinking with a significantly older man. Clearly, neither of them knew the truth. They were just as clueless puppets dancing whichever way the latest rumor pulled them. The thought put me in an even better mood. Sometimes it feels really good to be a man who's in the know. Look, I'm stationed at the checkpoint up by the border, you know. Of course I know that, Uncle. You just hit 20 years on the job, right? That's why they gave you this extended leave. What a know-it-all. Do you know what I do in the checkpoint, too? Hmm? Uh, no. The topics seemed to be drifting away from Ariel, so I found myself losing interest. I could see the barkeep putting the finishing touches on my order. Case was closed anyway, right? Next job was to find the best way to enjoy this booze. I work up at the lookout tower. Well, now he'd gone and got me interested again. At the very top of that checkpoint, we got this magic implement that lets us see real far. Use it to keep an eye on the far side of the forest in the north, right? I'm the man in charge there. No kidding. Anyway, word got around real quick after Princess Ariel went through the gates down below. All of my men in the lookout crew were dying to at least get a glimpse of her, so we stared out there until our eyes were bloodshot. So what happened? Did you see her exiting the forest? Sure did. It was Princess Ariel, no doubt about it. That can't be right, I thought to myself. Was that old soldier lying? Could Bruno have lied for some reason? Didn't seem likely, but it was possible that Bruno had gotten the wrong idea. Maybe the girl that last assassin killed wasn't really Princess Ariel. What I'd heard, the Lashuran family owed some fancy magic implements that could turn someone into a perfect body double. She likely used one to survive the attack. I jumped to the wrong conclusion. I delivered faulty information. This was not good. I needed to get firm confirmation of this story, then tell my client the truth. Enjoy, bud. The barkeep dropped my food off at the table. There was a plate of steaming hot grub in front of me, and next to it, a bottle of rare booze you almost never saw in ours. Ah, to hell with it. I'd half risen from my seat, but chose to plop back down into it. The princess was actually alive and enrolled at the Renoa University of Magic. She would get around sooner or later. The last thing I needed was some stuck up noble asking me for a refund, so I just had to leave the capital in a bit. Seriously, though, who would have thought the lookouts in that tower could have seen her from that distance? Even a clever boy like me overlooks a few things now and then, I guess. In the end, the information broker known as Gustav provided his client with misleading information. Or, I'm sorry, seems like a. In the end, the information broker known as Gustav provided his client with misleading information. As a direct result, Pyomon Notos Greyrat, the foremost member of the Ariel faction, was compelled to make a painful choice that left him in something of a predicament. But that is a story for much later time. Oh, there's Paul. There's Norn. Tall Hand, and Alina Lise. Yeah, that's it. And now the dog is yelling a lot for some reason. Richie? Hello?
Everyone is dead. No.
Well, I guess so. Well, I guess it's Guess it's
I
it.
hope
I
he
guess it's
realizes
just
he's
us.
muted.
Yeah.
Oh,
make
yeah,
sure
he
you're
is,
muted
that's true.
if you're talking.
If you want,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's what we were saying.
It was very much on purpose. Like I was trying not to interrupt people.
Yeah, but we finished reading. That's why we're trying to get you back.
Nah. Y'all
Yeah, we
have to
just
keep
finished.
rambling. You have to keep rambling. Like,
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, the book was. I mean, that was an interesting turn of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, all right, I have to pull out different voices, I suppose. I had to do nerd voice for an extended period of time, which was interesting,
Hmm.
but it was cool. That was definitely an interesting different perspective that we got to see about Princess Ariel. So I am curious about how she was able to survive or what she did, but she probably did like the body double thing, like he was talking about.
did
No
the
idea.
log distraction clone jutsu.
But this one had blood though.
Look, you gotta make him think more about it for a second. Like, wait, it was a log. No, it's bleeding. You sure they did it right?
Hallucination magic, probably.
It's fake blood too.
Gaslighting
It's like
magic,
a
my favorite.
gaslighting. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it was good. I enjoy. You guys have any thoughts about the chapter or the book now that it's done?
I'm glad you
Oh,
enjoyed
yeah.
it.
I think
I'm
it
glad you
peaked at the
enjoyed
last
back
chapter,
half.
if you ask me.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you guys enjoyed the back half. It was,
Yes.
it's a lot of fun.
I liked the rice thing the most. It was good.
Yeah, no, like I said, last chapter was better. It was.
Yes.
I understand why they cut the rice thing out, but at least like they could have kept his aunt in, you know?
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
well, it could have been like
100%.
a small little thing. I don't know. I feel like there could have been
Like a scene, like
something.
a single scene,
If
maybe, but
not,
like,
maybe like an OVA episode or something, because I feel like that
They
guy's
could
gonna
have
be
added
important.
it to
So
Eris's side story.
yeah, I don't know why they couldn't. But anyway,
Yep.
no, well,
All
blur.
right, guys, there we are.
Hmm.
We will be picking up volume 6 next week,
Whoa.
which means once we get it's the last volume in season 1. So once we get done with that, we are officially done with season 1 and we pick up with season 2 with volume 7. So
Oh, okay.
we're
ooh,
in
nice.
it. We're in it, man. We're in it to win it. Once we get past 12,
Yeah.
we're done with season 2. So
Mhm.
everything after 12 is new content if season 3 isn't out by then. That's where we're at. And we've been moving right along with Mushoku Tensei. Odds are we're gonna get to season 3 before the anime does.
Oh, holy
Which is
shit!
kind of funny.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it is kind of funny.
When Dad is away, the kids will play. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
The intro outro was amazing. Of which
Mhm.
part? Very enjoyable. Thank you. But yeah, guys, that's it for us. Oh, my neck still is hurting, but not nearly as much. I'm definitely
Well,
gonna
that's
have
good
to
to
get
hear,
that
at
looked
least.
at tomorrow. That being said, though, guys, we will be back with more gaming content on Wednesday with Asha for Wednesday and Thursdays. If things go
And then I will
as
also be
planned.
doing my watch along on Wednesday.
Mhm.
Yeah, you'll be doing your watch along on Wednesday over on Discord. I was specifically pushing the Twitch channel, but yeah, no, you're good. That's still Fat Dog content, so yeah, I
it's
should
Fat
push
Dog
that
stuff.
too.
Mhm.
So.
And then Friday we will be continuing Fun Friday on our new server for Satisfactory. So we got everything set up. Sadly, the server that we were playing on Friday was it had some issues and we lost all our progress. So we've literally been just getting everything
Oh.
back to speed so we can be. We're actually ahead of where we were last time, but yeah. Uh, we're back in the same area. We're doing a bunch of stuff, and we are now on phase 3 of the space elevator. Meaning we just unlocked 5 and 6. So yeah, that's probably what we'll jump into for Friday for Fun Friday, and then of course we will see you guys back here on Sunday as we do Anime Church on YouTube, and we will be back with Solo Leveling on this channel on Sunday. I can't talk about some of the things that are happening behind the scenes with Fat Dog, and which is sad because I really, really want to, but like things are moving in the background and not just on content. Like we've got some really incredible stuff happening that we can't wait for you guys to find out about. It looks like we're maybe just a little over a week away from having Konosuba being done, and we can start the whole process of putting that up on YouTube. Or, sorry. Why I say YouTube when I was thinking Patreon? We can put that up on Patreon, and then we have to do the copyright dance for YouTube, and it'll come out a couple weeks after that. So by the end of the month, hopefully everybody will be able to see Konosuba. That being said, thank you guys so much for your patronage. And now, because I remember it, plug your channels.
I stream on Twitch, Moonlight Sparks. Tomorrow specifically, we'll be doing the second playthrough of Resident Evil 6. Not sure which story I'm going to choose, but I've already done the Leon one with Richie, so we'll see what the next one is.
You barely did it with me.
I still beat it.
Yeah, but like I'm
think.
saying, you barely did it with me. No, you finished the Leon campaign. I just wasn't like I didn't even finish chapter 1 with you, my guy.
That's right, because you ended up not being able to stay, or we had internet issues, and then you're like, you know what? I'm just gonna go do something else. You're on your own. And I
Damn,
was
you
like,
just
"Oh,
abandoned him
okay."
mid-street.
No, I did not. No, I did not, because I did try and join back up, but somebody else jumped on, and I was like, "Fuck it, let him play with let him play with." Because
Again, no, you
RE6 is online. RE6 is completely online. So somebody else jumped in there. I was like, instead of kicking him, just let him have it. Let him have it. I wasn't, dude. I'm not here for 6 again right now. I just don't. I don't have it in me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understandable.
It's not a bad thing. Like, dude, I was not. I toughed it through 5, and that just killed all of my vibe for Resident Evil. When you get to 7 again, I'll be happy. But like 5 and 6, it hurts. It hurts.
And there is no again. It's when I get to 7. Hopefully getting through the rest of 6 won't be too difficult. At least 6 is extremely linear.
No. It is again because I've experienced all of them. So when you get to 7,
but you made it sound like it's again from me, so it's not again.
I was speaking through my perspective.
Not again for the person who's actually who's advertising it.
Yeah.
And I've told him nothing about 7, other than the fact that 7 is kind of
You
like
don't
a
need
new.
to. I've watched Mark and Jack play at least portions of it.
Okay, there we go. No. All right. It is the start of a new chapter in the Resident Evil franchise. So 7 and 8 are both connected to each other. They are directly connected.
8.
Village, yeah.
Yeah, Lady Dimitrescu.
Yes.
Oh boy, that
I
one.
agree.
The fun part is you experience that and you're like, oh man, this is so good, and then it's just the beginning part.
All downhill from here.
Yeah, like literally after the first quarter, there is no more Lady Dimitrescu. You have to fight everything else.
Well,
I'm gonna be sad to see her go, but I'm probably gonna love watching her leave.
You're gonna love to see her leave, yeah. At the same time.
No. Your final moments with Lady Dimitrescu not nearly as entertaining as you'd think.
It'll be entertaining enough.
You'll get enough out of it.
Nah, not with her attitude. Anyway.
Now, it's like at this point, it's like, you know what? I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let this one play out.
Yeah, I'm just gonna let this play out. It's gonna be fun. I can't wait to watch the boner killer in action.
What can I say? I just want her to toss me around and send me through the floor.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Me
And
too,
through the
buddy.
walls.
Me too.
Okay, Shim, you got anything you're plugging?
Not at the moment. That's why I didn't
Okay.
say
Hi,
much.
I'm
But
Richie Roberts. I have a Twitch channel, Richie Roberts 16. I barely stream on there, so if you follow, cool. Ain't shit going on, but follow and subscribe, whatever. I occasionally play games when the mood strikes me. I need to start gaming when I'm not trying to raise money for something.
yeah.
Yeah,
It would
I'm
help.
more or
I
less.
try to regularly
Yeah.
stream Tuesdays and most Thursdays, though this Thursday I'm busy.
Yeah, fuck
Mm.
that. I don't. No, no. I
Mm.
I don't find myself. I don't think of myself as an entertaining person when I'm gaming. A lot of the time, I'm just focused on the game. I get like hyper focused as per ADHD. Unless I
Well,
have
the
somebody
thing
with me.
the way I've tried to do it, so this is why I wanted to try playing Satisfactory on my own, is like start making your internal monologue external when you're playing a game.
No, that's not. No, I can't do that.
I
You
mean,
say
I guess
that,
it
but
depends.
it just
No,
kind of depends
no,
on your
no,
focus.
no. You don't
Yes.
understand. You don't understand. I am. You think most people think that I don't have a filter. I unbelievably have a filter. You do not want me to turn my internal monologue external. There are
Why?
so
What
many
could you
TOS
possibly say to
violations.
Satisfactory?
I have a 6-hour rant about that game that I'm pretty sure 90% of that is not TOS approved.
You'd be surprised what gets through. I mean, hot tub streams are still a thing.
He's got to do it. Yeah, okay, that's how you do it. You just got to sit in a hot tub and then rant about Satisfactory for 6 hours. There you go. I can see the views now.
Okay.
Can you?
Yep.
Horrifying amounts, actually.
I filtered all those thoughts. Good thing I didn't say those out loud. Anyway, moving on.
Mm.
Sure.
And you can catch me at twitch.tv/snugglevelocity. Normally I would be streaming Tuesday and Thursday, or aiming to this week. Although this week I will not be streaming, because as I am currently scheduling out times to get people recorded for episode 2 of Data Bridged. So I think Friday currently is the only day not scheduled actually for anything. There potentially Wednesday as well, but those might get filled up with recording days as well. So I don't want to say like, oh, I'll be there for Fan Friday with everyone else in Satisfactory or whatnot, or doing my own thing. Because right now this week is kind of hard to say when I'm going to be streaming type of deal. So, but I will probably post and just have everyone stay tuned on Twitter and or like the various Discords if you are in them. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
All right. Well, we're gonna go
Kind of
raid
bland
Yui.
compared to everyone else, admittedly, but yeah.
Yep.
We're gonna go raid Yui now, who just got hit by a bunch of things because apparently
Well-
she's thirsting over stuff. Guys, if you have not
Sounds
seen it,
about
she
right.
finally
Really
reacted to
unfortunate.
Sister Leveling, and it was
Oh.
fucking hilarious. It should be up on YouTube soon. Also, what was it she posted in her Discord recently? It was the whole holy and a hole reaction. That shit
Oh, I
was hilarious.
saw that.
It
Yeah.
was so funny.
She actually reacted to a video I recommended her too for a media reaction. The
Yeah.
Pepsi one.
Nice. We got to get her back reacting to Log Horizon soon, though. Yeah. Got to get her back to reacting
One
to
day.
Log Horizon Abridged. Yep. All right, guys, let's go. Let's go give her a fat dog raid.
Some more bonks
Fat
on
dog
the
raid.
head.
Just fat dog raid. I don't have anything specific. Just fat dog raid. Let's do it. All right, later.
We're gonna
yeah.
Bye.
Times. I mean, we still gotta wait for the countdown and everything, but yeah.
I think we should just like, instead of bonking her, we just throw books at her head. It'd be kind of funny.
All right, here we go, guys. Bye bye. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Later.